gotten it. I could easily summon 1,000 elite cavalry and completely crush Su Bai. Third elder. I want to go too. The Yanhuang commander, upon hearing that his son wished to join, also spoke to the third elder, let my son go. He can make up for his past mistakes. At the same time, in Shenyang, the city's defense commander, Li Rusong, stood on the city wall, buffeted by the cold northern wind. Below, the enemy forces were still overwhelming, with corpses of fallen soldiers scattered everywhere. The skeleton army feasted on the remains, continually regenerating their health. The skeletal mammoths, skeletal saber-toothed tigers, skeletal cave lions, and the lordly skeletal golems formed a mixed troop that was not only powerful and agile but also undead, resistant to physical attacks, making them extremely troublesome. Especially the skeletal golems. These prehistoric giants wielded shamanic magic. The defeated enemies can be resurrected and transformed into skeleton soldiers to fight for him. They come from the north, continuously slaughtering humans, as well as blocking soldiers and neutral creatures along the way. This prehistoric skeleton legion's enemies are multiplying like a snowball. Is the commander returning? Surely. The commander is rumored to have gone south recently and hasn't returned, and no troops have been dispatched from headquarters. Hearing there would be no reinforcements, Li Rusong bit his lip and suppressed his frustration. He urged the remaining soldiers defending the city. Hold on. Perseverance is victory. Reinforcements will arrive in 5 days. But everyone knew the truth. Reinforcements would not come. Not only in Shenyang, but several other cities were also under siege by the prehistoric skeleton legion. Many skeleton troops bypassed Shenyang to attack the cities in the rear. Even if reinforcements arrived, they would only relieve the urgent situation of those cities behind before finally reaching here. By then, it might be too late. Offer me 100,000 lives, and I will give up my attack on you. Below the city, the skeleton general put forward his demands. He wanted the blood and flesh of the people within the city. No way. As long as I, Li Rusong, am here, you will not harm a single hair on the citizens. With a fierce shout, Li Rusong summoned the last batch of Himalayan yetis from his stone sea with all his strength. Immediately, he fell into a coma. Sir, traveling by boat northward. They entered the estuary and finally arrived at the Black Dragon River, not far from Shenyang. Su Bai opened his eyes. After recovering from the previous battle, he had returned to his peak state. Using the Silver Tiger Talisman, the limit of soldiers within him tripled. The Bronze Tiger Talisman was directly given to Qi Tiantian. Currently, he had mobilized 72 soldiers, 18 rhino tanks, 10 terrifying robots, 12 magnetic storm infantry, 6 radiation engineers, 5 armed mining vehicles, 3 V3 rocket vehicles, 8 air defense tracked vehicles, 3 engineers, and 1 air defense infantry. Over 100 units in total. It didn't seem like many. Partly because the protection fee that Zhuge Fengyun and Jiang Shaoqing verbally promised to Su Bai was still in cash and had not yet been spent to buy gold. Therefore, he could only rely on ox carts to transport or. Now, the daily income from mining was 500 in gold. However, upon reaching Shenyang, he should be able to buy some gold in the city, so he wasn't worried about the size of his army. Moreover, he is very confident in his Red Alert troops. Besides, he wears the martial-level insignia and possesses a skill that brings immense killing intent. Additionally, he has the relic Wind, Forest, Fire Mountain. All of these can enhance the overall strength of his troops. This gives Su Bai a strong belief that this time he will not only defeat the enemy, but also, if possible, enter the territory of a certain country and perhaps steal a few trucks of resources. He has now reached level 25, according to standard practice. After using the Silver Tiger Talisman, the maximum troop capacity he can carry is 750. At the very least, he needs to replenish the mobilized troops to fill that capacity. Chapter 80. 1,000 miles of reinforcement, a torrent of steel. Gripping his head and shaking it left and right, he landed at Black Dragon River. The relic Wind, Forest, Fire, Mountain continuously boosts the speed of the troops. Finally, he spots the enemy. These prehistoric skeleton legions are pillaging the village, causing chaos everywhere with fire raging. Fortunately, he heard that the nearby residents had already been evacuated, resulting in minimal casualties. Attack. The rhino tanks pave the way, followed closely by the mobilized troops. The skeleton soldiers on the outskirts of the village are quickly cleared out. Experience gained, 153. Experience gained, 215. Experience gained, 503. A regular skeleton servant can yield 1 or 200 points of experience, while a soldier from a true prehistoric skeleton legion can provide over 500 points. These monsters are quite powerful. Indeed, these creatures were unearthed from underground dungeons, and humanity has yet to classify them or find effective counters. After all, humans are surface dwellers and do not reside underground, and no one knows how many undiscovered underground dungeon instances there are. Furthermore, these monsters have substantial health, often requiring a mobilized soldier to fire half a magazine before taking one down. Entering the village. Deploy. The mobilized troops begin to sweep through the houses. If they use the rhino tanks here, the homes of the locals will be destroyed when they return. Subai remains relatively restrained. The school has been deployed. The production team workshop has been set up. The watchtower at the village chief's house is ready. The footbath city at Fuqiao has been deployed. Once the mobilized troops enter the houses, they are no longer afraid. Every window becomes a corresponding firing point. Flames erupt everywhere. The scattered soldiers on the road are quickly cleared away, block by block, from the east side of the village to the west, all cleaned up. A few local defenders emerge from the sweet potato cellar, overjoyed. The commander has finally sent troops. Jiang Shaoqing dismounted to follow Subai. Fellow villagers, we are late. I am Jiang Shaoqing, son of the Yanhuang commander. I have cleared this area, and you are safe now. Dust swirled as rhino tanks and groups of mobilized soldiers formed a formation and moved away. Mud splattered all over Jiang Shaoqing, dirtying his bright armor. He turned back to see Subai sitting expressionlessly on top of a rhino tank. Just as he turned, the scattered troops emerging from the sweet potato cellar began to follow Subai. Villagers, the army has arrived. Rest assured, the enemy will soon feel the might of our iron tide. The army? Yes, indeed. The villagers were puzzled, having never heard of such an army before. However, the shining martial insignia on Subai's shoulder proved that this young man had the capability to govern a region. Jiang Shaoqing grew angrier. Damn it, you stole my thunder. This is my father's territory. At the city gate of Xingjing, the skeletal mammoths relentlessly charged against the gates. These monsters were even larger and more ferocious than real war elephants. Their tusks, resembling giant forklifts, could impale numerous bodies with each impact. Moreover, the energy from the bodies would continuously be absorbed into the skeletal mammoths, restoring their vitality. Some had absorbed so many bodies that their forms expanded and changed, becoming even larger, with increasing attack and defense capabilities. Li Rusong awakened and grasped his adjutant's hand. What is the situation? Have the reinforcements arrived? Sir, no. We must abandon the city. The remaining forces will cover the retreat and protect the civilians. The distant rumbling began to fill the air with dust and the smell of diesel. Everything became muddy and filthy. Li Rusong had his subordinates assist him to the city wall. Reinforcements? No, wait, enemy troops? Not quite. After all, no one could recognize the iron tide approaching from afar. Such a vast plain battlefield was the perfect place for tanks to excel. Subai had destroyed 5 more tanks, bringing the total number of rhino tanks to 23. Charge. The first to initiate the attack was the V-3 missile launcher at the rear. Red and white missiles rained down, landing among the prehistoric skeletal legion. Boom, boom. The sound of continuous explosions echoed relentlessly. Mixed with the shock waves of the missile blasts were the sounds of bones shattering. Following that, missile after missile detonated, toppling skeletal warriors one after another. The booming sounds shook the entire world. After firing a round of rockets, Subai dared not use the V-3 rocket anymore. After all, its shortcomings were obvious. It was prone to accidentally injuring people on the walls. This device could hit fixed targets, but for moving targets, it was only effective if they were particularly slow or unmanned. Clearly, the opposing force was organized and commanded. The V-3 rocket could only launch a surprise attack once. The diesel engine roared at full speed, guiding the rhino tanks into battle. The skeletal behemoth rose from its throne of bones. The scent of humans, devour them. The skeletal saber-toothed tigers and skeletal cave lions lunged forward like cunning beasts, looking for weaknesses in Subai's defenses. Meanwhile, the skeletal mammoth charged straight ahead, ready to clash head-on with the rhino tanks. Facing such a massive enemy force, Subai remained calm. He ordered the mobilized troops to halt their advance, mixing in some heavy infantry to deal with the incoming skeletal saber-toothed tigers and skeletal cave lions. His rhino tank unit formed a long line, swaying to avoid the skeletal mammoth's tusks, which were incredibly sharp. After just 3 hits on a rhino tank, one was already smoking. They could only eliminate the enemy in mobile combat. Obtain bronze chest, obtain brass chest, obtained wooden chest, facing the overwhelming enemy. These monsters that had escaped from the dungeon carried a significant number of treasures as well. Subai did not hesitate and opened all the chests. Obtained gold, 357, obtained gold, 314, obtained gold, 204. The amount of gold left Subai feeling dizzy. Previously, when he went into dungeons, the elite monsters there dropped slightly more gold than these ordinary creatures, but not by much. How could these lesser monsters yield so much gold? Subai had no time to ponder this, as he knew the vacant space in the stone sea reserved for that building was finally sufficient. That was the advanced military technology of the Soviet forces. The combat laboratory, a long-held dream, was finally about to be realized today. With the voice of the game's female officer Sophia echoing, "The combat laboratory has been completed, Commander. The Apocalypse tank is finally about to land in this cold northeastern region." Chapter 81. The Apocalypse tank makes its entrance, majestic and dominant. annihilating the colossal enemy. Skeletal mammoth, a heavy rumbling sound echoed. Today was Judgment Day. The deafening noise made it hard to concentrate. However, when one laid eyes on this steel giant, all other feelings vanished. The severe cold in the northeast caused frost to form on the steel surface of the Rhino tank. In front of him stood the massive Apocalypse tank, its powerful engine generating immense heat, completely free of any frost. The two 128mm cannons, with a caliber of 52, constantly demonstrated its formidable dual firepower. The front armor was as thick as 430mm, capable of resisting all damage, even immune to radiation. The anti-air missiles on top further proved its status as the king of versatility, the ruler of the land. In the face of a powerful siege, it was an invincible presence. Apocalypse tank, power, 300, agility, 40, defense, 200, health, 1,600, skill, dual shells. This immense power, with its health surpassing that of the level 3 Rhino tank, made Su Bai's breath heavy. Like the tank's driver, his eyes reflected only destruction. The Rhino tanks, which had been engaging in guerrilla warfare, quickly retreated. They had to make way for the newly arrived king, the Apocalypse tank. The skeleton mammoths charged. In the distance, the observing skeleton golem immediately organized a new batch of skeleton mammoths. These powerful undead creatures lined up like a mountain, breaking through with iron chains, charging directly at the mere 3 Apocalypse tanks. On the city walls, Li Rusong's palms were sweaty. The reinforcements had indeed arrived, but they did not carry the banner of the commander. Moreover, there was only one unit, a lone force deep in enemy territory. Was the opposing commander out of their mind? He had first-hand experience of the power of the skeleton mammoths. In a previous battle, he had sent 10 times the number of Himalayan Yeti to attack 5 skeleton mammoths, only to suffer a crushing defeat. One could only imagine how high and strong the attack and defense of such creatures were. The dungeons of the underground world were incredibly powerful. They were not places that surface dwellers could easily toy with. But Su Bai wore a smile, for he knew the outcome had already been decided. The Apocalypse tank remained steadfast, bracing for the impact of the skeleton mammoths. In an instant, bones shattered and tusks broke. Several mammoths that charged too fiercely suffered damage from the impact, while the surface of the Apocalypse tank showed little in the way of injuries. The turret rotated with a clatter. The 2 long cannons aimed at the head of a skeleton mammoth. Boom! The massive cannon's muzzle spewed 2 flames. A colossal head was engulfed, skull shattered, piercing through the cervical vertebrae, and then bones splintered apart. 34 so fierce. 34 Li Rusong watched in stunned silence. What a terrifying power. With just one strike, a skeletal mammoth was taken down. It's incredibly strong. That hit just now aimed for the head and dealt critical damage. At the same time, the other 2 tanks also opened fire. Within the artillery coverage area, many skeletal mammoths fell. The tanks then advanced, and the sound of bones cracking echoed. The fallen skeletal mammoths were crushed into bone fragments under the weight of the tanks. The enemy's strongest heavy artillery was eliminated, and under the protection of heavily armored soldiers, the skeletal troops and saber-toothed tigers were unable to launch effective attacks. They couldn't achieve a lethal bite to the throat. Instead, the mobilized troops were left jumping around, being killed by the terrifying close combat robots. Jiang Shaoqing, hiding in a safe area, felt his legs go weak. This battle exceeded his imagination. This was not on a mythical island, where the enemy simply had superior numbers and his elite cavalry couldn't cope. It was a direct clash of power against power, showcasing a gap in combat effectiveness that no strategy could bridge. Unless one became stronger. He felt intimidated, completely intimidated. The image of Su Bai, who could face thousands alone and remain unshaken, grew taller and more distant in his mind. From envy to extreme jealousy, then to admiration. Now it was utmost admiration. This was the strongest man he had ever seen at his age, without exception. The skeletal lord watched as his strongest spear, the skeletal mammoths, were taken down one by Su Bai's tanks. A cold snort escaped his lips. Indeed, very strong. However, as the lord of the underground city, with mastery over skeletal magic and the accumulated essence of countless years of skeletal fossils, how could a mere human boy break through that? The staff drew a pentagram on the icy ground. Come forth, flying dragon, skeletal wind caller. Shadows shot up from the pentagram, soaring into the sky. With wings spanning 5 meters, a pterosaur flew through the air. On the back of the pterosaur, a skeletal beast soldier held a poisoned spear, looking down at the world. This was the skeletal lord's ultimate move, the flying dragon rider, skeletal wind caller. There were over 100 of these flying units. In the sky, they rained down poisonous spears. In an instant, several mobilized troops had their collarbones pierced by the descending spears. The remaining troops immediately raised their guns to retaliate against the enemies above. However, these agile units quickly maneuvered their pterosaurs into the sky, dodging the bullets. After all, Shooting at planes with rifles relied purely on luck. Not many people would take it seriously. Once again, a barrage of deadly spears fell, and several mobilized soldiers were taken out on the spot. Among them, a few armored infantry were also severely injured. Seeing Su Bai in a tough spot, Jiang Shaoqing, who had been hiding in a safe place, finally gathered his courage and rushed out like a man. Tiger Wolf Cavalry, Heavenly Dance. As he galloped, the elven cavalry wielded their long spears and threw them with great force, unleashing a series of thunderous meteoric strikes that thwarted the enemy's aerial assault. 1 or 2 dragon riders were shot down in the process. Jiang Shaoqing hurriedly ran in front of Su Bai. Brother, run. My troop skill has a cooldown of a minute. I doubt we can hold out for the second round of defense before being overwhelmed. I admire you, get on my horse. Su Bai looked bewildered. Why did he come up here? Isn't this just adding to the chaos? However, this guy wasn't as much of a jerk as Zhao Haoyan had been before. Su Bai lightly touched his shoulder. Don't worry, our air defense capabilities haven't been showcased yet. In the next moment, amidst the stone sea of Su Bai, the air defense artillery was ready. The Apocalypse tank slowly moved, and Su Bai leaped forward onto the top of the tank. Looking at the air defense missiles of the Apocalypse tank, he said, it's time to counterattack. Chapter 82. The Apocalypse is equipped for air defense. Are you intentionally charging into the line of fire? The air defense rockets of the Apocalypse tank targeted the dragon riders in the sky and launched. A thunderous roar erupted as flames soared into the sky, and a dragon rider was blown to bits by the missile from the Apocalypse tank. At the same time, other Apocalypse tanks also initiated air defense attacks, supported by the air defense tracked vehicles. The area of effect firepower was overwhelming. Additionally, a rather unnecessary infantryman, who was more of a burden than a help, was also put to work shooting at the dragons. Meanwhile, Su Bai began to load bullets into his Browning gun. The click of the chamber echoing as he aimed at the sky, closing one eye. Bang! A skeletal dragon rider fell from the sky. Jiang Shaoqing felt as if he were dreaming. It was too surreal. What kind of weapon was Su Bai using that could hit airborne troops? This was clearly unscientific. Even many-ranged units couldn't target aerial forces. How could Su Bai manage this? He didn't know. Ever since Su Bai established the air defense artillery, his attributes had been enhanced to deal damage to aerial targets. As long as he wielded a shooting weapon, he could strike units in the sky, additionally benefiting from the 150 points of splash damage provided by the air defense stick, in addition to the maximum damage limit of 800 points from the gun in Su Bai's hand. Is it too much to say that one shot could take down an aircraft? What's even more astonishing is that after the bullet hit a flying dragon knight, it ricocheted and struck another nearby flying dragon knight, just as the anti-aircraft weapons described splash damage. On average, each shot could cause 5 or 6 ricochet effects. The enemy fell from the sky in droves. Open the city gates. Go out and meet the enemy. General Li Rusong shouted loudly, commanding the remaining military leaders in the city to summon all their troops to annihilate the demoralized enemy forces. Despite their losses, the morale of the defenders was high. This sudden arrival of a new army was able to push back the skeleton army at every turn. Such strength inspired everyone, including Jiang Shaoqing. He wielded his silver spear, leading his cavalry into the enemy ranks, continuously breaking through and staining his battle robe with blood, becoming a small killing god. With a thrust, he sent a skeleton lion flying. At the same time, a spear was lodged in the back of the lion, belonging to Li Rusong. Commander, you brought your troops here? Truly a blessing. You saved us all. At this moment, Jiang Shaoqing no longer dared to claim credit. He humbly said, it was Su Bai, that commoner who saved us. He pointed into the distance. Li Rusong followed his gesture and saw a young man standing atop a massive steel beast, with 2 cannons roaring beneath him, wielding a strange weapon and attacking the sky. With each sound, 1 or 2 flying dragons would fall to the ground. Kill. All remaining forces, charge in. Eliminate these humans and rush into the city to feast on their flesh. The skeletal giant roared fiercely, flailing his staff. Red light slowly rose along the trajectory of the staff. On the ground, the shattered skeleton soldiers began to move, merging and assembling, gradually growing larger. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. A 10-meter giant skeleton was formed, composed of the bones of other skeleton soldiers. Huge and powerful, it made a thunderous sound as it swung its massive hand, tearing a chunk off the city wall of Shengjing. The other hand struck the defensive arrow tower, sending debris flying as the tower collapsed with a loud crash. Not good. The enemy is entering the city. Li Rusong clicked his tongue in disbelief at the overwhelming strength the enemy had suddenly unleashed. As the main forces of the commander arrived, they aimed to prevent the enemy's advance, but it was likely to result in heavy casualties. In an instant, several bombers boarded the air defense infantry vehicle, braving enemy attacks to get inside. They reached the giant skeleton monster and detonated their bomb vests to stop the creature from entering the city. The soldiers on the city wall were deeply impressed when they saw their commander sacrificing his troops to slow down the enemy's assault. Brothers, hold this wall. Behind this wall are the citizens of Shangjing. We cannot let down the sacrifices of our reinforcements. In an instant, the morale of the remaining defenders on the wall surged, and they fought back with reckless abandon. These soldiers had already exhausted their ammunition, so they resorted to primitive methods to defend the city, using rolling stones, logs, and boiling oil. Their fingers were bloodied and raw, with all their nails worn down, just to lift the heavy stones to crush the skeleton army below. Some citizens, having only awakened a couple of soldiers, eagerly came to the wall to support the defenders. This was the spirit that Su Bai instilled in them. It wasn't about strength, but about belief. The skeleton general quickly organized a counterattack, filling the gaps left by the air defense vehicle's incursion. Kill. I will carve out a path. Jiang Shaoqing, covered in blood and looking like a bloody figure, had seen his cavalry reduced from over 200 to just 40 or 50 after the fierce fighting. Even so, driven by rage, he fought valiantly, seemingly forgetting his noble status as a scion of a prominent family. With reckless abandon, he charged forward with his spear, trampling several skeleton soldiers under his warhorse. Die. In the distance, the skeleton general launched an arcane missile aimed at Jiang Shaoqing. He fell off his horse as it collapsed under him. Was this the end? Would he fail to uphold his father's reputation? After saying this, he closed his eyes. But, just as the saying goes, with a knife in hand, one charges into battle. A formation of rhino tanks surrounded Jiang Shaoqing, shielding him from the enemy's pursuit. The lead tank was a top-tier model, the Tianqi tank. Su Bai stood atop the tank, exuding an aura of dominance. He looked down and chuckled. Practice more if you're not good enough. Don't worry, if you can't afford to play, then don't play. Hearing Jiang Shaoqing could still speak, Su Bai continued to command the attack. In Jiang Shaoqing's eyes, Su Bai had become his hero. Although it felt a bit strange, it was indeed true. At the same time, he asked, got money? Yes. How much? He had 3 million in pocket money and was carrying over 800,000 in cash. I asked about the gold coins. There were more than 3,000 of them. Hand them over. Why? Su Bai, too lazy to waste words, directly ordered 2 of his subordinates to strip off his ring. Coins spilled all over the ground. Thank you. The tank drove away, leaving Jiang Shaoqing alone, bewildered in the wind. Beast. Indeed, that guy is a beast. Chapter 83. The city is full of tricks. I want to go back to the countryside. The skeleton lord's defenses broke, and the tank was incredibly powerful. With the support of these 3,000 gold coins, another tank rolled out of the factory. Although it was just one more, the balance of the battle immediately began to tilt in Su Bai's favor. The cannon turned, aiming at the giant skeleton that had destroyed the city gate. Boom. The cannon fired, spewing flames and hot smoke, tracing a beautiful arc in the air as it flew toward the massive skeleton. This level of power was sufficient for ordinary beings, but for higher-level creatures, it was far from enough. However, the 2 heavy shells did knock off a piece of the giant skeleton's skull. Green slime splattered everywhere. The brain of the giant skeleton was exposed, soft and fragile. The previous strike had dealt critical damage. The skeleton let out a loud scream, its health dropping suddenly by 110, reaching the critical point for a kill. This strike also alleviated the urgent situation for the soldiers on the city wall, who had just narrowly escaped being slapped to death by the giant skeleton. In retrospect, they were all horrified, sweating at how brave they had been facing the skeleton. How could they have been so bold? Next, before the soldiers on the city wall could recover from this feeling, 2 more shells struck the giant skeleton's brain. The soft brain splattered all over the city wall. Some people were drenched in it, a foul stench filling the air. Though it was a messy situation, they were awakened from the shock of the earlier attack. It was a reversal, a true reversal. A surge of immense joy erupted in their hearts. Another shell, 2 shells, 3 shells. The weaknesses were being concentratedly attacked. The forehead of the giant skeleton was continuously impacted backward by the energy of the shells. Fragments of bone fell off from the previous wounds. Previously, when its limbs were broken, the giant skeleton would absorb nearby corpses to repair itself. But now, with irreversible damage to its brain, the repair speed of its remaining limbs had suddenly slowed down. Su Bai let out a sigh of relief. He had spent all his money. At this moment, it was all worth it. If all the money on oneself is spent, and it still fails to prevent the monster from breaking into the city, that would be the greatest sorrow. Today, this matter has finally been successfully stopped. All troops, listen up. Surround and annihilate the remaining enemies. Another shot fired into the sky. All units entered a state of acceleration. Coupled with the soldiers being fully charged with the killing intent, their attack speed doubled. They pierced into the heart of the enemy formation like a sharp sword. Wherever they went, they cleared a path. Under the onslaught of firearms, no souls remained. Kill. The banners waved, and the remaining commanders, exhausted, crawled up from the ground. directing the last few soldiers to engage the enemy. Retreat. Back to the underground city. The skeletal giant was taken aback. After stepping into human territory, they had been unstoppable. Wherever their sword pointed, it turned to ruins. Today, upon entering the territory of the Dragon Nation, they encountered such a terrifying opponent. One could only say, the city is deep and complex. I wish to return to the countryside. Among the 36 strategies, the best plan is to flee. Do not even think about escaping. A golden whirlwind rushed through. Several skeletal lions were torn to shreds by sharp claws. In the sky, a giant bird screeched, with its claws capturing. A skeletal soldier riding a dragon was instantly killed. The colossal white elephant rampaged like a derailed train. Its spiked trunk swept, knocking over a skeletal mammoth. On the back of the colossal white elephant, Commander Yin Huang leaped up. Like a thunderous strike, he cleaved downward. Then, with a single slash, he swept through the enemy ranks. Behind him, thousands of subordinates, under the banner of Yin Huang, commanded various airborne and ground troops to rush to reinforce. Reinforcements. The reinforcements have finally arrived. The sudden attack of the prehistoric skeletal legion had wasted much time for Commander Yin Huang and his subordinates to reclaim various locations. Only now did he manage to allocate a regiment of troops to rush back to the city. He hadn't expected that when he arrived, it would be the closing ceremony. The enemy had already been routed. Who defeated all these enemies? All units pursue. His troops swiftly chased after the enemy. At the same time, everyone who had joined the battle earlier was exhausted. The city was finally defended. At this moment, Commander Yin Huang noticed a figure among the corpses, struggling to stand with a silver spear. This person was covered in blood, clearly having fought fiercely until now. What a brave warrior. Bring that person here. 2 medics carried him over. Commander Yin Huang was stunned. Isn't this his son? He actually dared to participate in such intense combat. How is that possible? He knows his son's nature. He is a good-for-nothing who indulges in drinking, gambling, and all sorts of vices. And now he is actually standing up? He still found it hard to believe. So he called out softly, Qing, Dad, you finally came. Boo-hoo-hoo, it really is you. When did my son become so brave? Little one, do you have a lot of questions? His head was filled with question marks. Subai, it's him. He led a large force to stabilize the situation and defeated the enemy troops. I was also inspired by him. He gave me courage. Subai? He knew that he had sent Qing'er to follow the young man named Su Bai to the capital, simply to show his determination in front of the third elder. It was merely to gain some merits. He hadn't taken these 2 young men seriously at all. He thought they would just engage in guerrilla tactics on the outskirts, taking out a few skeleton soldiers for some military achievements. After all, his son had made mistakes first, and that young Su Bai was highly regarded by General Li Yunlong. Moreover, he bore the marshal's insignia personally awarded by the third elder. He could not be underestimated as a rising star. Having such a talented young man befriend his son was not a bad thing at all. Initially, he had heard that Su Bai fought fiercely against the enemy forces and already knew something about him. This guy had struck it lucky, having soldiers skilled in poison, and used their strengths to overcome the enemy. But what awaited him afterward was a legion of skeletons and undead soldiers. Poison would be of no use against them. Now, hearing from his son that Su Bai had defeated an entire large force, he was shocked. This young man not only had remarkable skills himself, but his soldiers were also formidable. In the temporary command center of the capital, Su Bai, you truly are a young hero. General Yunlong did not underestimate you. It was I, a mere commoner, who misjudged. A true hero acts for the country and the people. Commander Yin Huang praised. It's nothing. But can the expenses for this operation be reimbursed? Chapter 84. The Arctic Circle has abundant resources, and they are all from the same hometown. Is it too much to ask for something? Commander Yin Huang. Well, of course, it's only right. We can't let you bleed for nothing. Though he said this, he was secretly wondering why this young man was so fond of money. He had just collected 5 million in protection fees from his son, and now he was asking for more. Forget it. After all, he had defended the capital. If he sent his own troops to attack and defend, there would likely be considerable casualties. The funeral and compensation would also amount to a significant sum, since it was all going to cost money anyway. Bring it here. Reward him. A subordinate brought a tray covered with a red cloth. Su Bai lifted the cloth, revealing 5 shiny golden fish underneath. It seems like it could be worth around 8 or 900 gold coins. Su Bai wanted to speak up, thinking that in battle, it wasn't energy that was consumed, but money. However, he couldn't bring himself to say it, not wanting to expose his secrets. So, feeling somewhat dejected, he accepted the 5 gold bars. A messenger entered. Report. The prehistoric skeleton army has retreated into the neighboring nation. This was a bit troublesome. After all, it was another country's territory. If we entered on a large scale, it would be considered an invasion, which wouldn't be easy to explain internationally. Commander Yin Huang began to worry. If they didn't eliminate the root of the problem, should the skeleton army return, the border cities would suffer again. But Su Bai's eyes lit up. Commander, why not let me go? I can go alone. It won't be too obvious, and it would be a personal action. Commander Yin Huang looked at Su Bai again. This young man indeed had extraordinary abilities. Letting him go could be a good strategy. It wouldn't attract attention, and it could also eliminate the skeleton army's forces. Good. Your loyalty is commendable. Here's your reward. This time, it was another tray, but instead of small fish, it was filled with diamond and agate pieces. Su Bai took a deep breath. These were refined ores. Good stuff. This tray was worth at least 8,000 gold coins. After receiving this, Su Bai took his anti-aircraft tracked vehicle and personally headed to the neighboring nation. Dad, why can't I go with you? You reckless son. I don't want you to die? That's another country. If you get caught by the border guards, you'll be imprisoned and humiliated. Besides, you'd be facing the prehistoric skeleton army, a formidable opponent. If Su Bai goes, it's a matter of life and death. Jiang Shaoqing was shocked. Are you saying Su Bai might not come back? However, on the other side, after crossing into the neighboring nation, Su Bai immediately summoned his Rhino tanks, Apocalypse tanks, and anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, forming a steel torrent. Instead of following the retreating clues to defeat the Skeleton King in the underground city, he thought, since he was in a resource-rich country, it was time to take advantage. In the Dragon Nation, all mineral resources were state-owned. With his ox cart, he could only mine the chaotic thoughts within the stone sea to obtain resources. Most of these stones were just pure rock, with very few containing valuable metals. The efficiency was very low. But now, the laws of the Dragon Nation didn't apply here. The neighboring nation was at war. The mineral resources lying in Siberia were his for the taking. The large force moved into a village. Su Bai mobilized 100 troops to establish a base. Over the next few days, he divided all his troops into 8 routes, with 2 teams in each direction, up, down, left, and right, searching for nearby mineral resources according to the map. 2 days later, the troops gradually received news. In the north, 2 oil fields were discovered, but the evacuation site was abandoned. Engineers, occupy. In the west, an open-pit diamond mine was found. Carts, start moving. In the south, several oil fields were also discovered, but there were local guards present. Mobilize the troops, start moving. No kidding, my oil fields, my mines. Anyway, this troop of mine has never been introduced in any book around the world. Moreover, the mobilized troops look just like the locals. They are all fellow townsmen. Taking a little something isn't too much, right? In the east, a gold mine was discovered, and 2 carts were produced to go mining. The resources on this map of the polar circle are indeed abundant. One site, temporarily safe, is by the oil well. Everyone, for the motherland. As long as the enemy doesn't attack, we want to take a day off. Good. Ivanov, the leader of the oil fields, encouraged the oil workers who were still working. At this moment, the office door was opened. A man wearing a yellow hard hat and carrying a briefcase walked in. This area had already been taken over by the army. Everyone was stunned. Didn't the military say that reinforcements wouldn't come temporarily? Which army is this? Here. There has never been any mention of this troop. Now, resources must be produced for the commander. Commander? Which commander? Su Bai? Right neck twist. Right neck twist. Ivanov led the charge, and the oil workers followed suit. They were only extracting oil for the motherland and didn't even know Su Bai, so they shouted slogans. Right neck twist. Long live Su Su. The 2 sides were on edge. At that moment, the mobilized troops rushed in, guns aimed at Ivanov, while also shouting, right neck twist. Right neck twist. Right neck twist. Both sides shouted the same slogan, refusing to back down, and then, gunfire erupted. The oil well was taken over. A week passed like this. In the city of Shengjing, Dad, hasn't Su Bai replied yet? No. What is going on? Jiang Shaoqing was anxious. There are 2 possibilities. The first is that he took my reward and ran away. The second possibility is that he has already died in battle. I estimate that, with his courage, it's unlikely he would run away with my money. If it were purely for money, selling my dragon-slaying sword would allow him to live a life of luxury, enjoying endless wealth. Why suffer that kind of hardship? At this point, both felt a silence in their hearts. That means Su Bai has died in battle. Should we inform General Yunlong? Let us wait a bit longer. And don't let this matter leak out. General Yunlong is elderly. If he can't handle it, we won't be able to bear the consequences either. Another week passed. Sukabulai. Sukabulai. Clatter. A mobilization soldier dumped supplies from an abandoned house in the vicinity. Indeed, items like this gold pocket watch, gold rings, and silver cups are all useful to me, so keep collecting. A large area of Siberia, with its villages and towns, has long been deserted. However, many valuable possessions inside these homes were left behind. These items have become one of the targets for the mobilization soldiers, which is gold and silver. Although the resources needed are gold, it was surprisingly discovered that silver can also be exchanged for money after recycling. The exchange rate is 110 of gold, meaning that 10 silver coins are equivalent to 1 gold coin's resource points. Items like silver hair accessories, silver plates, silver forks, and silver buttons looted by the mobilization soldiers can all be converted to cash. After half a month of sweeping through, Subai's Rhino tanks have already produced 30 units. The Apocalypse tanks have also reached 10 units. The number of mobilization soldiers has increased to over 100. So Subai waved his hand and advanced towards the skeleton army's headquarters. Of course, there was another reason for this, as one gem mine had been nearly exhausted. And another gold mine had also been drained significantly. Only the oil wells remained, yielding 100 units daily. If they stayed any longer, the enemy might regroup, making it even harder to fight back. Above the vast forest and snowy plains, the roar of engines echoed throughout the forest. Tracks left deep and fierce marks on the snow-covered ice fields. Rhino tanks, Apocalypse tanks, and anti-aircraft tracked vehicles charged forward at full speed. Fire. The patrolling prehistoric skeleton army was the first to suffer from the bombardment of the steel torrent. Boom. The tremendous impact directly sent those skeleton soldiers flying, crashing into the snow. Damn it, they actually hit me right in the face. Do they think the prehistoric skeleton army is unprepared for battle? The Skeleton King, furious, ordered all troops to charge out of the underground city and behead the enemy. Chapter 85. Destroying the enemy's lair, a massive amount of gold coins and divine-level items appeared. Subai felt ecstatic. The remaining troops streamed out, forming a square formation outside the underground city. Just as the formation was set, the Apocalypse forces rushed in. Under the steel torrent, there was no escape. Previously, the armored forces formed by Subai's Apocalypse and Rhino tanks had already given the Skeleton King a hard time. As the lord of the underground city, he never expected to encounter such a formidable opponent. This time, the enemy's tanks were double the original number. Was this not a death sentence? Retreat. The V-3 rockets immediately sealed off the entrance to the underground city. One by one, the rocket shells exploded at the entrance. The air rippled, and the soil flew into the air. The permafrost of Siberia was as hard as iron, yet it too melted under the high temperatures. Suckabliat. Suckabliat. With a twist of the neck, the armored firepower troops overwhelmed the prehistoric skeleton legion without any resistance. It can only be said that under absolute firepower, even the undead can perish. Die. With a swift strike, a lethal blow infused with electromagnetic currents swept away the skull of the skeleton golem. Soon after, chests began to burst forth, spilling out coins and a massive amount of experience. Indeed, as the dungeon lord, the loot was plentiful. Bronze chests and wooden chests appeared, which Subai couldn't be bothered to open and directly stored in his ring to sell later to a merchant. Subai only opened silver chests and above. Obtained coins, 1548. Obtained equipment, bronze sword. Obtained coins, 854. Obtained equipment, necromancer's staff. Obtained equipment, sphere of darkness. In an instant, Subai acquired over a dozen pieces of equipment. Excluding the useless ones, the most valuable were the necromancer's staff and the sphere of corruption. The necromancer's staff could summon 2 skeleton soldiers from corpses, usable 5 times. For Subai, who had mastered necromancy, it wasn't particularly useful. The sphere of corruption, when carried, could reduce an enemy's defense by 3 points, also a mediocre piece of equipment. After clearing the area, a mobilized soldier approached. The passage connecting to the dungeon that had collapsed from V-3 rockets was finally cleared. Follow me. With a wave of his hand, the mobilized soldiers marched in step into the dungeon. By now, the monsters inside the dungeon had mostly vanished, leaving only the weak and feeble behind. Of course, they had all been eliminated. In the dungeon, slaughter and pillaging ensued. Any monster that could be seen was killed by Subai's mobilized soldiers. Once humanity descends into madness, reason collapses. The current situation was no different. A massacre was taking place in the dungeon, with the targets being the remnants of the undead. At 5 p.m., Subai sat on the skeletal throne where the skeleton golem had once been. In front of him was a mountain of gold, silver, and jewels. It seemed this lord had plundered quite a lot of valuable items, boasting a rich treasury. Commander, we found this. A mobilized soldier presented an item with both hands. Phantom contract. One-time item. Permanently enhances, attribute, guardian by the undead. When attacked, there is a 20 chance to be immune to damage, and when attacking, there is a 20 chance to inflict additional spectral damage, dealing 15 points of damage to the enemy, effective against all targets. This passive ability only activates at night or in darkness. Note, after using this item, your troops receive protection from spectral souls, which may absorb damage on your behalf or inflict spectral damage with your attacks. Looking at these powerful attributes, Subai's breath quickened. A 20 chance to be immune to enemy attack damage essentially increases the overall health of all troops by 15. Moreover, the attack power also increases by 15 points. This is a qualitative leap for his basic mobilization troops. Previously, the basic mobilization troops had gained the power of the Blue Ice Demon. with each bullet inflicting an additional 5 points of fire damage. Even that alone provided a heavenly enhancement. Now, the bullets also carry spectral damage, and it's 3 times the previous amount. The rate of fire combined with this damage output is explosive. Subai swallowed hard, trying to contain his excitement. He immediately used the scroll. Suddenly, a strong wind roared past his ears, mixed with the sounds of ghostly wails. It seemed as if countless souls were crying, whispering to him about the injustices of the world and their desire for revenge. In the next moment, the mobilization troops beside Subai were suddenly enveloped by a vague white shadow. This white shadow spiraled around the mobilization troops repeatedly, coiling around them like a python. From chest to back, from head to waist. It was hazy and indistinct, making it hard to see its form. Is this the spectral being mentioned in the scroll? He wondered what it felt like to be protected by a spirit. Just as he thought this, a white silk garment brushed against Subai's nose. He took a gentle sniff and was greeted by the scent of osmanthus, refreshing and pleasant. In the midst of this, the white shadow also intertwined with Subai's body. It seemed he was also under the protection of the spirit. However, in the next moment, a weak female voice screamed in surprise, revealing her true form. It was a woman dressed in white silk, with her hair styled in an ancient fashion, a delicate face resembling that of a young girl around 20 years old. Slim and with exquisite features, especially her eyes, which were watery and appeared to be a pitiful beauty straight out of a television drama. Her exquisite face was filled with terror. Who are you? The woman knelt on the ground, looking very weak. Her name was Nie Xiaoqian, and she was frightened by the murderous aura emanating from Subai. Are you a ghost? The young lady is a remnant soul, residing outside the west peak of Lengxi Gate in Jinhua City. She has been coerced by an evil entity and placed under a binding curse. Now, thanks to your efforts in lifting this curse, I am willing to assist you for all eternity. Wow, this is shocking. Subai was completely taken aback. The guardian spirit he had was actually a female ghost, and a remarkably beautiful one at that. How will you assist me? I am at your service, my lord. She replied. Can you help me warm my bed? Subai asked directly, hitting the nail on the head. After all, he was a straightforward person and hoped that the other party would be equally candid, without any beating around the bush. Nie Xiaoqian responded. If you help me kill that evil entity, I will serve you every night. Subai took a deep breath and exhaled. All units, stand by. Withdraw. Head to Jinhua City. Lengxi Gate. Understood, Commander. Chapter 86. The initial force consists of 10 members. Since that's the case, let us just bring out the Allied base vehicles. How could you, as the head of the Public Security Bureau, be so negligent? There's a dungeon that threatens the safety of the people's property in Jinhua City, and you are completely unaware. If it weren't for Su by eliminating the boss of that dungeon, who knows how many more people would have died? Are you just hoping that your daughter will marry the son of the commander and quickly rise through the ranks? Secretary Gao Yuliang slammed his desk, feeling disappointed in his disciple, Director Qi. How many times have I told you, be professional at work? Secretary Gao, it's just that I want to advance too much. Qi Tongwei replied, feeling frustrated. He indeed wanted his daughter to climb the social ladder, ideally with the commander's son, as it would greatly benefit his own career. However, his daughter was in love with Subai. No amount of persuasion would change that. Now, in his own province, Subai had discovered another hidden dungeon and even cleared it. He felt utterly bewildered. It was quite embarrassing for the head of public security to be unaware of this new dungeon. Subai, this young man, was increasingly beyond his imagination. Go, go, go. As the rooster crowed, Subai stretched and got out of bed, noticing the impressions left in the blankets. He savored the warmth from Nie Xiaoqian from the previous night. Unfortunately, like a fleeting dream, she vanished with the daylight, leaving him to slowly reminisce about the feeling. A few days ago, the commander was prepared for morning but was astonished to see Subai returning with a large force, looking relaxed. At that moment, he wanted to become sworn brothers with Subai, which left his son Jiang Shaoqing feeling incredibly frustrated. Dad, Subai and I are of the same generation. However, Subai had other matters to attend to and directly returned to Jinhua City in Handong, where he eliminated the copy of the Black Mountain Old Demon. This startled Gao Yuliang, who was working in the area, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. After all, he had been patrolling this place, and it turned out there was such a huge copy hidden here, which he was completely unaware of. Moreover, his convoy had passed through here. What if something went wrong? How could he ensure his safety? Therefore, he reprimanded Qi Tongwei harshly. Subsequently, he personally met with Subai to commend him. Nowadays, Subai had also met high-ranking officials, so he was no longer that restrained. He stayed for another 2 days before preparing to return to school. Just before leaving, Commander Yin Huang approached him. Upon meeting, he immediately knelt down in front of Subai, leaving Subai utterly confused. Previously, he had already cleared the grudges with Commander Yin Huang and his son, as he was not someone who held on to grudges. What is the meaning of this? Subai asked, Commander Yin Huang sighed and explained, in this world, the gate to the outer realm opens every 30 years. Each country must select several strong individuals to enter it. Otherwise, a national calamity will befall us. Those who enter the outer realm and slay demons can bring fortune to the nation. Of course, those who enter face a perilous journey. Years ago, when our country was struggling, Commander Yin Huang volunteered his future son to fight on behalf of the nation to secure fortune, so that ordinary citizens wouldn't have to bear the risk of potential sacrifice. However, decades have passed, and while his son is now capable, he has become somewhat reckless and unfit for such a task. Just as he was worrying about this, he came across Su Bai, a man with powerful troops. This young man would be more suitable to replace Jiang Shaoqing in entering the outer realm. If you are willing to go, upon your return, I am willing to offer you the position of Commander Yin Huang. Su Bai was indifferent. After all, he was going back to school. If the outer realm was indeed interesting, he could enter as well. What exactly exists there? Su Bai inquired. Commander Yin Huang replied in detail. Our country has developed to this day, prospering and achieving various glories, thanks to a previous individual who entered the outer realm and brought fortune to the nation, creating today's flourishing era. Looking back at the time of the Dragon Nation, the feudal emperors were brutal and tyrannical, leading to chaos and destruction across the land. This was a result of the decline of national fortune. Therefore, according to the rules, those who enter must be young people under 30 years old from the Dragon Nation. Moreover, only 10 units can enter, and once inside, soldiers summoned from within cannot be used again. It can be said that the initial troops are all you have. Compared to Qing'er's Spirit Army, your so-called Apocalypse tanks are even more formidable and more suitable for entering. Of course, if you have nurtured heroes, that would be an added bonus. However, in my opinion, your current strength fully qualifies you for entry. Su Bai understood that meant the initial troops were limited to 10 and that he could not summon soldiers from within. The rest would be left to fate. As for how to gain national fortune, Su Bai was still unclear. He turned his gaze to the Allied base vehicle in his stone sea, which had been idle for a long time. It was time to put it to use. 5 days later, the sky suddenly froze, and then the winds and clouds changed. A beam of light descended. Commander Yin Huang and his 3 armies watched as Su Bai entered. That was the portal to the outer realm. To his surprise, Su Bai not only brought several of his so-called Apocalypse tanks, but also a blue vehicle larger than a double-decker bus. He frowned and couldn't help but ask, what kind of unit is this? On the other side, Zhuge Fengyun was sweating profusely. He had experienced separation from his parents and ultimately resolutely stepped into the portal to the outer realm. There was no choice. This was the responsibility of the children of Longhua to sacrifice for the common people at critical moments. As Su Bai stepped inside, a massive light screen appeared before him, seemingly attached to his retina. 1 Commander Max of the Allied forces is ready. Race. Beastmen. 2 Commander Wilson of the Allied forces is ready. Race. Divine Eagles. 3 Commander Yamamoto Haoyin of Sakura Nation is ready. Race. 2-headed ogres. 39 Commander Su Bai of Longhua is ready. Race. Humans. The menu displayed players from dozens of countries. Some smaller nations chose not to participate, opting to bear the consequences of their decision and ranking at the bottom, likely due to weaker racial ratings. However, he had never relied on others' evaluations to make a living, especially since he had brought the Allied base vehicle with him. This time, unfolding the Allied base vehicle before him would surely bring an extraordinary experience. One name on the menu caught Su Bai's attention, Yamamoto Haoyin. It felt somewhat familiar. Chapter 87, Void Outer Realm, Allied base vehicle. Unfold. As the menu before him disappeared, an alarm sounded. Countries that have not entered the outer realm will suffer 3 years of drought. As this news echoed, some desert nations expressed indifference, while those primarily focused on grain exports felt deep anxiety. Of course, for a major country like the Dragon Nation, 3 years of drought could leave countless people without food. In the outer realm, gigantic mushrooms towered in the distance under a sky filled with purple-red ground, unevenly cracked, making the area appear desolate. In the sky, floating debris constantly reminded everyone that this was not a place on the blue planet. Zhuge Fengyun swallowed hard. He saw Su Bai's name at the bottom of the rankings. While it was unexpected, it made sense. Damn, how could his old man be so clueless? If he had known to promise Su Bai wealth and glory to compete on his behalf, it would have been easier. Instead, that old bastard from the command of Yin Huang got ahead of him. Despite his complaints about unfairness, his command never showed any signs of stopping. According to internal documents, the outer realm, though desolate and boundless, was home to many creatures and races. Killing units here could earn points, and occupying their buildings could be advantageous. Some structures were of the altar type. Occupying them would allow soldiers to unleash powers. The more occupied, the greater the advantages that would snowball. He gazed at the distant smoke and led his Qi Min Bagua soldiers cautiously towards it. He chuckled, ha ha. Who would have thought that I, Zhao Haoyin, would have my day again? Back to the peak. Haha. K-Gear. Advance. Yes, sir. Zhao Haoyan was determined to defeat the number 1 on the leaderboard, the nation to the east, and secure the greatest fortune for the Cherry Blossom Nation. Ever since he ended up on the island, Zhao Haoyan seemed to defy fate. First, he was favored by the emperor, and then he was adopted by Yamamoto Kazuo, taking on the surname Yamamoto. From then on, he soared to new heights. His frail body was miraculously restored through the Yamamoto family's secret arts. His heart was consumed with thoughts of revenge against Subai. This powerful hatred drove him forward, allowing him to defeat many members of the Yamamoto clan using a two-headed ogre, becoming a shining star, especially with his loyal two-headed ogre chief, K-Gear, who had now learned many skills, providing a protective aura that increased the entire army's defense by 10 points, a high-level shockwave with 600 damage, and a passive buff that granted a 15 chance of a critical hit that stunned the opponent for 3 seconds, dealing an additional 200 damage. Not to mention K-Gear's ultimate ability, Divine Armor. Once activated, it granted invincibility for 30 seconds. He relied on this tactic to defeat all the talented young members of the Yamamoto family. Base vehicle deploy. In the outer realm, there was an open space. With a command from Subai, the allied base vehicle spun in place, and then split open in the middle. Various buildings sprang up from the ground. The base vehicle was fully deployed. Impressive. Unfortunately, the minerals he collected internally couldn't be used here. Subai had a black card in his storage ring with 50 million on it, intended for purchasing gold. Recently, continuous purchases of gold had caused local gold prices to soar. Therefore, he held back and didn't buy too much. Unexpectedly, after entering the outer realm, the resources within his body couldn't be used, leaving him only with what was in the storage ring. Even so, power plant. Activate. Next to the base, a circular power plant rose up. Unlike the power plants of the other forces, the allied power plant generated more electricity while occupying less space. However, it cost 800. The price was too high. After constructing that, Subai continued to build the allied barracks. The price for the allied barracks was 500, which was reasonable, but it occupied a larger area than the other forces' barracks. Fortunately, the land in the outer realm was desolate, with plenty of places to build, unlike in his own stone sea, where every inch was precious. Once construction was completed, Subai summoned 5 elite soldiers. Sir, yes sir. That familiar voice echoed again. Nostalgia hit. The 5 soldiers stood in unison and saluted. Good, you 5 will be assigned to deploy at the edges of the southeastern, southwestern, northwestern, and northeastern bases. Understood. The 5 dispersed, each taking out sandbags to form a circle around themselves, surrounding the base. The small handguns they initially held were replaced with M60 general-purpose machine guns. Good. The remaining troops will explore. During combat, only by continuously familiarizing themselves with the surrounding terrain and environment can they gain an advantage of time and place, putting themselves in a favorable position. Moreover, in the outer realm, there are people from other countries present on this map. There is an unspoken rule that all governments around the world know. When individuals from different countries eliminate each other, they inherit each other's points and resources. In other words, this is a dark forest. Every commander from various countries is a hunter navigating the forest in the dark, moving forward without knowing the dangers and unknowns ahead. The safest choice is to draw their weapons and shoot at the slightest sign of trouble. Therefore, the enemies here are not just unknown monsters, but also people from other countries. For Subai, the mention of resources made his eyes light up. What he craved the most was indeed resources. Soon, his Apocalypse tank encountered enemies in this area. Hellhound. Level, LV36, Strength, 72, Agility, 84, Defense, 65, Health, 2,350, Skills, Bite, Devour. Rabies. Note. The Devour skill allows recovery of 2 health per second for 15 seconds. Note. The Rabies skill has a 25 chance to poison enemies upon attack, dealing 15 damage per second for 15 seconds. Subai clicked his tongue. This was the most ordinary monster he had encountered. Its attack power, defense, and health far exceeded those of monsters on his home planet. Furthermore, such an ordinary monster came with 2 skills. No wonder many nations required that the troops sent to this area be exceptionally strong, or that the heroes be incredibly powerful before allowing them to enter. However, despite the strength of the Hellhound, it was facing his Apocalypse tank, the king of land warfare. In just one encounter, this formidable monster had turned into experience. Absorbed by Subai. Experience gained. 808, Chapter 88. While everyone else is capturing strongholds, you are just mining? The experience was not insignificant. At that moment, a new prompt appeared in the outer space. Defeated Hellhound. Gained 5 points. Meanwhile, a leaderboard system appeared before Subai. 1. Commander Max. Country A. Points. 524. 2. Commander Wilson. Country A. Points. 452. 3. Commander Yamamoto. Country B. Points. 351. 39. Commander Zhuge Fengyun, Country D, points, 85. So that's how it is, there's a monster-killing leaderboard. As a newcomer, Su Bai hadn't prepared adequately for the outer realm. It seemed the opposing side had gathered much more information than he had. Quickly racking up hundreds of points, he needed to speed up his efforts. In the capital of Country D, the military bureau, the three elders sat solemnly. In 2 rows sat Zhuge Shiguan, Li Yunlong, and several other military officials. Meanwhile, Commander Yin Huang and Jiang Shaoqing knelt, offering apologies. Elder, it's not that I am unwilling to let Shaoqing go. I have seen countless people, and among the youth, Su Bai is the strongest I have encountered. It would be more fitting for him to represent Shaoqing. Jiang Shaoqing also bowed his head in apology. It's not that I am afraid of battle. It's simply that Su Bai is 100 times stronger than me. Today, my father and I are willing to accept punishment. The elder said, no matter how strong Su Bai is, he is just a civilian, unlike us who rely on the government. At critical moments, we should stand up for the people. You too are indeed guilty. Yin Huang, your position is revoked, and you are suspended for reflection. Jiang Shaoqing, all your public titles are also revoked. Disarm them. The guards removed the armor and honors from the two. In this nation, not working for its interests while in office is a serious crime. After the two were taken away, Li Yunlong said, forget it, forget it. This young man Su Bai is reliable. He is definitely much stronger than that Jiang kid. On the other side, Zhuge Fengyun said, General Yunlong. But the Su Bai you favor now ranks last, even worse than my own child. However, that Yamamoto Kaido from the Cherry Blossom Nation, who I had never heard of, has suddenly risen to 3rd place. The sacred relics were deployed, and everyone could clearly see the battle of Zhuge Fengyun in the outer realm. Phew, took down another one. I'm exhausted. At this moment, Zhuge Fengyun finally captured a resource point. Inside, there was an altar and many crystal ores growing beside it. He stepped forward, absorbing the energy contained in the crystal ores. Then, with a loud bang, the demon flag flying over the altar dissipated and transformed into the national flag of this nation. The base of Zhuge Fengyun has been established. Come out. Wooden bull and flowing horse. With the altar, he could summon a maximum of 50 soldiers from within. This was essentially the beginning of everything. Now, Zhuge Fengyun's courage had increased a bit. As long as he didn't act recklessly, he could slowly develop. However, he couldn't help but wonder why Su Bai, who had always been stronger than him, had still not established a base. Without a base, he could only use those initial troops. Once they were exhausted, he would have to retreat. Moreover, if discovered by people from other nations, he could be killed. What on earth is Su Bai up to? Boom. Inside a base, the monsters were cleared, and the crystals were thriving. Touching the crystal, a surge of energy entered Su Bai's body, only to be repelled afterward. It seemed he wouldn't be able to absorb energy in this lifetime. Allied mining facility, activate. After returning to the base, an allied mining truck headed to the previous crystal deposit to start mining. The base was operating normally. They built another allied mine and sold it, acquiring another cart. Very good. The ground here is flat. Let us settle here. Su Bai waved his hand, and a wall stretching over 10 kilometers rose in response. Then, another wall followed, continuously, until a surrounding wall covering dozens of kilometers was completed. As the commander, he could comfortably stay in the base and raise a few guard dogs. Life in a different realm. However, something is still missing. Nie Xiaoqian. Come out and serve the master. The ghost entwined around Su Bai dissipated, forming a human shape. The white-clothed ghost, Nie Xiaoqian, appeared before Su Bai. Your servant is here. Would you like a massage or some music? What can you sing? Nian Nu Jiao, Wan Qi Sha, you may run, Ru Ming Ling whatever. But you must sing with a microphone. Microphone. Of course, it's this thing. Su Bai took out the microphone he carried with him. Nie Xiaoqian blushed as she held the microphone. This thing is hard and black. Can it be used as an instrument? Go ahead and sing. Just as she was about to start, a notification came from the outer realm. Welcome to the outer realm space. Your arrival has caught the attention of the Abyss Lord. In 10 minutes, the attack will begin. Please prepare your defenses. This was a bit abrupt, so Su Bai had to retract his microphone. As Nie Xiaoqian returned to her form to protect herself, it seemed the game was just beginning. He summoned over 30 soldiers to guard the main gate of the base's city wall. He also hid a bunker beside the base vehicle. Additionally, Su Bai played a little trick by surrounding the mine, performing a flying cow mining operation. However, it seemed that this bug had been fixed, as it was impossible to do so in reality. Elder Zhu, most commanders of various nations have found their defensive strongholds, but Su Bai has yet to locate any. Multiple waves of monster attacks are about to begin, and the situation looks dire. Zhuge Shen looked at the relic for communication. His expression conflicted. Mr. Zhuge, can you communicate with Fengyun to find Su Bai? They can converge and support each other. Elder Zhu asked. There's no time. The monster siege has already started. Everyone knew that as a commander, not finding a stronghold meant that even the bravest troops would struggle against the powerful monsters from the outer realm. These monsters were not only numerous, but also high in level and damage. Meanwhile, Zhuge Fengyun was already in a precarious situation. The waves of monsters had inflicted heavy losses on his wooden cattle and flowing horse. Not to mention that his father was using the relic, the golden abacus, to send signals for him to merge with Su Bai. He was close to being unable to protect himself. Moreover, these monsters were surrounding him, making escape nearly impossible. Just then, in the distance, a cloud of dust rose over the plains. A blue vehicle led the way, topped with a domed shape. Suddenly, there was a loud bang as a demon guardian was shot in the head. Following that, several vehicles that arrived shot out flying iron rods, which caused explosions upon contact with the enemies. The attack from the rear immediately changed the encirclement situation of the enemy forces. The monsters turned around to pursue, but their speed was no match for the vehicles. The vehicles engaged while retreating, ultimately annihilating all the demonic guardians. However, these vehicles did not stop. Instead, a large truck-like vehicle arrived. This vehicle drove over to the crystal where Zhuge Fengyun was absorbing energy. The digging plow at the front kept cutting into Zhuge Fengyun's crystal, and then it was absorbed into the vehicle. After a while, Zhuge Fengyun finally regained composure. My Energy Crystal. Chapter 89. Phase 1. Point Settlement. Su Bai maintains first place. Leading by a wide margin, Su Bai drove the multifunctional infantry vehicle, constantly moving across this foreign continent. The Allied Forces Vehicle Factory had been completed, and 5 or 6 multifunctional infantry vehicles had been produced. Su Bai commanded these vehicles to engage in hit-and-run tactics against waves of monsters. The 10 waves of monsters attacking his position had been completely cleared. Now, he was continuously searching for monsters attacking the commanders of other nations. After all, killing more monsters meant earning more points. My son is saved. Which nation's troops were those metallic carriages? That was a close call. Zhuge Fengyun almost sacrificed himself. Li Yunlong chuckled. This must be the chaotic troops stirred up by Su Bai. Interesting. Fun. So, it was that young man who didn't die after all. No stronghold. Fighting a guerrilla war on the ground. Quite bold. However, Zhuge Fengyun also turned misfortune into fortune and survived. Officials from the military department were discussing it. But Zhuge Xin's calculations were dismissive. There was no evidence it was that kid Su Bai. It should be my son's wooden ox and flowing horse troops that were enhanced and upgraded to a metallic form. Now that there was no news from Su Bai, he probably didn't know where he was hiding in some corner, trembling in fear. At this moment, the 10 waves of monster attacks ended, and they began tallying points. 1 Dragon Country Commander Su Bai, points earned, 16,876. 2 Sakura Country Commander Yamamoto Kaido, points earned, 12,688. 3 Certain Country Commander Max, points earned, 8,365. 33 Dragon Country Commander Zhuge Fengyun, points earned, 665. Explosions of disbelief erupted among all officials present, including the elder responsible for national security. Everyone was shocked. Su Bai actually took first place with over 16,000 points. He left the second place, Yamamoto Kaido from Sakura Country, far behind. Heaven bless the Dragon Country. Victory is assured. Our Dragon Country is about to experience a flourishing military destiny. The officials, who previously wore poker faces, now showed shock, joy, and exuberance. At this moment, the divination master cleared his throat. Everyone present held significant responsibilities and needed to be mindful of their status. Although it was unclear why Su Bai ranked first, he had no stronghold and was ultimately without foundation. It wouldn't be long until the second round began, and it was likely that this child wouldn't be so fortunate then. On the other side, the two-headed ogre chief, Kogel, unleashed a tremendous shockwave. The massive stone hammer, weighing 1,000 pounds, was raised by the ogre chief Kogel and brought down heavily. A gigantic shockwave sent dozens of elite guards flying. No, blood and flesh exploded. Chunks of meat splattered everywhere. Plundered 43-32 points from Commander Wilson, who has perished. Zhao Haoyan licked the blood at the corner of his mouth, unable to suppress a sinister smile. Ha! I am the strongest. In the outer realm, I am the mightiest commander. Meanwhile, Kogel raised his stone hammer, looking to the sky, and let out a terrifying roar unique to the ogre clan. Next, the ranking points would be calculated. Zhao Haoyan's smile faded, as he anticipated being seen by the Emperor of the Cherry Blossom Nation as the number 1 ranked. What an illustrious honor, especially as a warrior of the Cherry Blossom Nation. When the rankings appeared, and Su Bai's name was listed first, Zhao Haoyan could hardly believe his eyes. Su Bai? How could it be him? That guy also participated in the Outer Realm War? His points exceeded mine by nearly 4,000. An infinite rage ignited within him, sweeping away any previous honor and pride. Damn it, Su Bai, why are you everywhere? Soon, Zhao Haoyan's gritted teeth and anger slowly faded, replaced by a smile. Let me find you. and let you know how powerful I have become with the strength of the Cherry Blossom Nation. Phase 1 ends. All commanders can use their gained points to build bases for development. The first round concluded. Zhuge Fengyun slumped to the ground. The crystal in the stronghold had already been harvested by unknown entities. He had only managed to accumulate a little over 600 points. With this amount, he could just build a hero altar to summon his hero, Mr. Wulong. It seemed he would have to rely on his hero to engage in guerrilla warfare here. Starting now, each commander could use their points to construct barracks, increase population limits with housing, hero altars, shops, defensive towers, walls, and other buildings, gradually developing their own forces to become the strongest in this vast outer realm. As a crackling sound echoed, a map screen appeared in Su Bai's mind. After the completion of the Air Force Command Center, the map finally lit up, and there was no need to navigate blindly anymore. Within the base, Su Bai finished constructing the Air Force Command Center and began producing flying troops to explore the nearby uncharted areas. He realized that this vast outer realm was indeed enormous, with many places shrouded in the fog of war. After completing these tasks, Su Bai prepared to advance technologically. However, he suddenly received a notification that he had enough points to build additional structures, prompting him to pause for a moment. There were indeed many things that could be constructed in the outer realm. However, many of the buildings overlapped with his allied construction system, and Su Bai was reluctant to build them. For instance, barracks and hero altars. What use were they to him? Nonetheless, some buildings were still somewhat useful, such as houses, which could increase unit limits upon construction. However, Su Bai's allies did not belong to this system. The houses could serve as small fortresses for them to garrison in, but overall, they were not very useful. Su Bai flipped to another category of buildings, and he was immediately shocked. There were incredibly powerful structures available, categorized as wonders. From the pyramids to the hanging gardens of Babylon, from the Temple of Artemis to the Statue of Zeus, all kinds of wonders from across the universe were included. Even the Statue of Liberty and the Eiffel Tower were listed. Unfortunately, his magnetic storm infantry could not be deployed, otherwise, he would undoubtedly become the new lord of the outer realm. This was impressive. Su Bai clicked on a traditional palace located in a large mountain. The icon shimmered with a mystical aura, and the building's pavilions and towers resembled a fairyland. Palace of Awakens, wonder. The first palace in the world, sweeping the 6 directions, rolling across the 8 wastelands. Building health, 200,000. Attributes, after construction, all unit strength increases by 100 points. Construction cost, 6,000 points. So powerful. Much stronger than the Statue of Liberty and the Eiffel Tower. With a wave of his hand, Su Bai initiated the construction. Suddenly, the ground began to rise dramatically. Amidst the mountain peaks, golden light flickered. In the ethereal mist, a grand palace appeared before Su Bai's eyes. Impressive. Chapter 90. The Palace of Awakens. A sea of wine and meat, the Great Wall, forts every 5 miles, light towers every 10 miles soon after. The soldiers behind Su Bai felt a surge of immense power. Once weaklings with only 5 points of strength, they transformed into formidable warriors. The false muscles from their protein powder began to harden and became real powerhouses. Their hands, holding weapons, steadied significantly. Follow me into the palace. At your command, Commander. 50 soldiers followed Su Bai into the Palace of Awakens. The sounds of deployment echoed, ka-ka-ka-ka-ka-ka, filling the air. The entire palace was fortified, transforming it into a military stronghold. Sitting on the central dragon throne, the palace had a health of 200,000, providing a strong sense of security that made the protagonist feel at ease. He then turned his attention to other wonders. The next one was the Great Wall. Wonder, iron-blooded Great Wall, defending against the barbarian horses crossing the mountains. Building health, 750,000. Attributes, after construction, all troop types receive a miracle bonus. Increasing defense by 50 points. Construction cost, 6,000 points. This attribute was quite powerful. Increasing all troop defenses by 50 points was invaluable, especially since the monsters here had strengths of around 70 to 80 points. With this additional 50 points of defense, it would reduce the monster's damage by 60. Without any hesitation, the protagonist suddenly stood up from the dragon throne and waved his hand, commanding the world like the first emperor of a certain dynasty. Immediately, a massive stone wall surged up around the perimeter of the buildings surrounding the base. The wall stretched for hundreds of miles, ultimately forming a square that completely enclosed the base. This was incredible. The palace and the Great Wall. What else was there? The protagonist had no intention of building barracks or anything like that with the points. He wanted to spend them all for his own enjoyment. The feeling of personally constructing a wonder. Who could truly understand that? As he scrolled down, he discovered a rather strange icon. It depicted meat hanging from trees, with many people frolicking in the water. What is this? Wine pool and meat forest. Wonder. With wine as the pool and meat as the forest. It allows women to frolic within for a night of drinking. Building health. 5000. Attributes. Such an immoral wonder can stimulate humanity's most primitive desires. Increasing all troop types attack power by 60 and movement speed by 60 after construction. Building cost. 6000 points. This thing seemed rather inappropriate. The protagonist considered himself a person of integrity, disdainful of such immoral wonders. However, he still decided to build it. Not out of a desire to witness the visual spectacle of women playing in the wine pool, but because the attributes of this wonder were too extraordinary. Prioritizing the bigger picture, he cleared his throat. A fragrant aroma wafted through one of the squares in the palace, where delicious cooked meat hung from branches, and a massive wine pool filled the area. The air was thick with the scent of wine, and many graceful figures appeared intermittently, creating a scene that was both alluring and intoxicating, resembling a decadent painting that was hard to resist. After all, the high-tech era has not yet begun, and Tanya has yet to emerge, gathering strength for a powerful future. Subai stood atop the Great Wall, overlooking the city below. The majestic scene exuded a bold ambition, as if asking the heavens for another 500 years. However, a great wall without soldiers guarding it is merely a paper wall. In an instant, dozens of fortresses rose from the ground, standing atop the wall. Subsequently, anti-air missiles were also completed on the towers of the wall. 10 power plants sprang up within the wall, and light towers were built every 10 miles, interconnected. It resembled a fusion of high technology and classical elements, a cyberpunk vision. This ironclad territory owes its prosperity to the energy crystals found here, which are richer in resource points than gold or gemstone mines. One could say that a mining vehicle from the Allied forces yields a direct 5,000 resource points. To put it in perspective, on an ordinary map, a mining vehicle only extracts 500 points. This is a tenfold increase. Subai directly commanded 10 vehicles to mine. With the influx of resources, he gained confidence, allowing him to set up numerous defensive structures along the Great Wall. Now, Subai could command his troops with peace of mind and expand at will. Moreover, he activated a second lottery draw, though the rewards were modest, including a magnetic energy tank, which were trivial matters not worth elaborating on. 10 minutes later, the Burning Legion has arrived. All commanders, please prepare for defense. Suddenly, the sky glowed red. Clouds of burning dust descended from above. Upon closer inspection, they were meteorites falling from the sky. After crashing to the ground, explosions erupted. Between the meteorites, green flames flickered and then expanded into a humanoid shape, towering as high as 6 or 7 stories. Subai recognized this monster. It was the hellfire summoned by the fearsome demon under the command of the deceased Hu Yanju. That creature was already formidable, but the one before Subai was 3 to 5 times larger and even more powerful. Beneath it, swarms of skeletal mages and skeletal warriors descended like a tide. This was precisely what Subai desired. He immediately ordered the mining vehicles to return to the city. All entrances of the Great Wall were sealed. Groups of soldiers climbed to the battlements and set up familiar M60 machine guns. The energy towers above continuously gathered special light beams, reporting to the commander. The enemy has entered the attack range. In the palace, Subai sat on the dragon throne, steady as a mountain. Only a black dragon robe remained. Otherwise, it would truly be as if the first emperor of a certain ancient dynasty were alive. With a wave of his hand, he commanded, "Attack. Annihilate the enemy forces." "Yes, sir." Immediately, the light towers on the Great Wall fired beams of destructive energy, with the assistance of other light towers. The damage was amplified by more than 3 or even 5 times. In an instant, a skeletal mage was reduced to ashes. At the same time, the machine gun bunkers opened fire. Clouds of dust erupted, and the ground was engulfed in smoke. Dozens of skeletal soldiers were swiftly gunned down. Meanwhile, the soldiers stationed on the city walls also began firing their machine guns incessantly. Gunfire filled the air. The forces of hell showed no sign of retreat, as they were embodiments of disaster. Without emotion, pain, or fear, they charged forward recklessly, unafraid of death. In less than an hour, the skeletal legion of Hellfire suffered heavy casualties. At that moment, the bear tanks burst through the gates of the wall. More than 20 tanks split into 2 groups, flanking the enemy like 2 red lines, piercing through their front lines. The troops, enhanced by miraculous powers, surged in combat effectiveness. The once fragile bear tanks were now formidable. This time, they truly rose to the occasion. With the benefits of their lavish surroundings, the shells flew swiftly. In contrast, the enemy lay amidst a sea of corpses, and those who were still alive were merely remnants of limbs, their lives nearing an end. As for those who had fallen but were not yet dead, they were crushed into bone fragments under the bear tanks. Annihilate the enemy forces. Amidst the roar of artillery, the powerful forces of hell surged toward the Great Wall. With each step forward, the burning boulders on his body were shattered by the shells. As he approached, he raised his fists above his head, shouting, "Huh?" The ground shook with his strike. The soldiers recoiled in cover, but their actions were a moment too late. Suddenly, the Great Wall activated a hidden passive ability, the Great Passes of the World. One by one, the watchtowers lit up with bright red lights. Soon, smoke signals rose. And from the defensive points of the fortifications, a barrage of thunderous long spears shot forth, like a stampede of thousands of horses. The sounds of thunderous collisions echoed as they struck the Hellfire forces. With a resounding crash, the powerful Hellfire staggered backward and fell to the ground. Meanwhile, the solar energy tower has recharged successfully. For conduits on the left and right are transmitting considerable energy. Transmission gathered. Fire. A beam of deadly light strikes, shattering the head of the Hellfire creature instantly. Points gained. 858. Impressive. Sitting in the Grand Palace, Subai observes the defensive battle through the war map provided by the empty branch. The Burning Legion is indeed formidable. But what he didn't expect was that this marvel, the Great Wall, actually has a hidden passive ability. It was inadvertently triggered just now. The long spear unsheathed. Reminiscent of the valiant warriors of the Qin dynasty defending the borders against the Xiongnu. It crushes and overwhelms each enemy attempting to cross the Great Wall. Excellent. Truly magnificent. A soldier brings back a trophy. Acquired. White Witch Spring. What is this? White Witch Spring. One-time item. Building. Attribute. After use. It can construct a spring that slowly restores health. Injured individuals entering it can gradually heal, recovering 2 health points per hour. It's just what I needed. Although no one perished in that battle, the soldiers were injured to varying degrees. This is a perfect opportunity for them to soak in the spring and recover. Construct and use. In the city, a gentle spring water gushes forth, beginning to nourish all living beings. Meanwhile, on the other side, the trap is triggered. Counterattack. A rain of arrows pierces through, and several demon guards fall to the ground. Mr. Wulong lightly fans himself, looking quite disheveled. Zhuge Fengyun, panting heavily, realizes he can no longer defend his home. He can only follow his dragon hero, Mr. Wulong, to pick up scraps and fight monsters. Zhuge Fengyun has truly been put in a difficult position. Yes, now the entire army has fallen, leaving only a lone commander. I wonder how Subai is doing. He might just be our dragon nation's only hope. Zhuge Xinxian taps the abacus twice. Earlier, I cast a divination. Although my son is currently in crisis, he is a blessed person who will surely turn the tide. As for that Subai you mentioned, he is utterly unreliable. The third elder remains silent. The current situation of the Dragon Nation is quite dire, especially externally. Many media outlets with insider information have begun to speculate on the war's conclusion. Numerous countries believe that the last one standing will be the nation often referred to by various names. However, some media outlets think that the Cherry Blossom Nation has emerged as a dark horse, potentially altering their national fortune, especially after Yamamoto Koten eliminated the representative of the aforementioned country. The emperor specifically decreed that the soldiers stationed in a certain location should quickly withdraw. No country holds hope for the Dragon Nation. Even domestically, many are in despair. At this moment, strange phenomena begin to arise from the relics. In the distance of Zhuge Fengyun, a troop was rushing madly toward them. Dinosaurs? No, the world hasn't discovered a dinosaur army yet. What is that? The officials from the military department were discussing among themselves. General Li Yunlong fixed his gaze on the relic and slowly said, "That's the lizard army from a neighboring country. Years ago, I sent my subordinates to lead the troops from the highest peak in the world to their capital. And I have seen this army. The neighboring country, the forces of the Gandhi family, had inherited the lizard army for generations. Cold-blooded and brutal, they wore specially made armor. Swift and extremely lethal. Upon hearing this, everyone was immediately alarmed. It's over. This time Zhuge Fengyun is doomed. And the fate of the dragon country is also at stake. In the outer realm, killing for points is as easy as drinking water. There are no reasons, no rules. If you want to kill, just do it. The one with the strongest fist has the say. Mr. Wulong, quickly activate the secret weapons to hold them off." Facing death, Zhuge Fengyun was drenched in sweat. The magic is already exhausted. What? In the distance, a dark-skinned figure with colorful wraps on his head stepped out from the lizard army's ranks. "Oh, who is this? It turns out to be our neighbor." Zhuge Fengyun forced a smile and bowed. "I am Zhuge Fengyun. I hope you will be merciful, and I will definitely offer a generous reward in return." "Sure. Our neighboring country is known for its friendliness and love for peace. We prefer not to engage in warfare. If you are willing to cede the highest mountain in the world and all the land at its foot to us, I, your third brother, will protect you in the days to come." As he spoke, this third brother grinned, revealing a few shiny teeth. The Dragon Country commander seemed like a lizard in his hands, free to play with as he pleased. Zhuge Fengyun glanced at the third elder. "Why don't we pretend to agree and then go back on our word later?" he said, lacking confidence, his voice barely above a whisper. Li Yunlong slammed the table, pointing at Zhuge Fengyun and started to scold him. You bastard. Do you have any idea how many of my subordinates died when we reclaimed that territory on the highest peak? Every inch of land is paid for with blood. How can you just give it away? Zhuge Fengyun stood up as well. As the saying goes, all's fair in war. It's just a pretense of agreement. I'm not truly selling out. How dare you? Even a pretense won't do. If you mention it again, no matter what position you hold in the military department, I will still cut you down. The third elder said sternly, calm down, everyone. Regarding international issues, our dragon country has principles. If we agree, we agree. If we don't, we don't. If we agree and then backtrack, how can we maintain our credibility internationally? Zhuge Fengyun wanted to respond, but was stopped by the third elder's glare. My dear, don't say that I didn't help you. The heart of the strategist is bleeding. There has been no response yet, and our leader has been waiting for over 10 minutes, losing all patience. So, you might as well just give up. Lizard Legion, attack. The third brother is also losing patience. It seems the Dragon Kingdom is not planning to retreat. Just kill this person in front of us directly and earn some points. At that moment, a large shadow appeared in the sky. He looked up, and it blocked out the sun. He couldn't help but exclaim, buzzing? I haven't heard of so many mosquitoes in the outer realm. Chapter 92. Too many mosquitoes will bite to death. Too many flying troops will kill to death. Countless shadows fell, covering the Lizard Legion. Su Bai was sitting in a lavish banquet, surrounded by several maidservants attending to him, playing music and enjoying himself. However, while he relaxed, Su Bai was controlling the groups of flying troops from the Air Force, numbering over 100, with intense focus. Is that the flag of a certain nation? Attack. Entire army. Recently, this nation had frequently troubled the Dragon Kingdom. Not long ago, they even led troops to raid several villages in the Dragon Kingdom overnight. The entire nation was in a state of excitement. Therefore, encountering Su Bai, who unleashed so many flying troops, was bound to make an impact. As he spoke, wine splashed out of the pool, and one of the maidservants fell in. Flying troops, scatter and shoot. From above, the firepower was unleashed. Quick, quick, quick. Defense. The third brother was alarmed. The ones in the sky must be the military of a certain country, but they didn't carry the corresponding flag. However, it was too late. Many heads of the Lizard Legion were blown apart on the spot. Your Majesty, it's too fast, too fast. Full firepower. The flying troops alternated between scattered attacks and focused fire on the elite enemy troops. Be gentle, Your Majesty, be gentle. In the air, the lizard army on the ground began to draw bows and prepare for defense. However, the flying troops soared like mosquitoes. A few dodged many arrows by rolling. Your Majesty, this position is too painful. Stop rolling. For the third brother, although the attacking power of the enemy army in the sky was not strong, their numbers were overwhelming. Moreover, the most annoying thing was their agility, like mosquitoes buzzing around one's ears while trying to sleep. Irritating and hard to swat away, often resulting in slapping oneself instead. That was the current situation. Damn it, you're forcing me to use my ultimate move. Come forth, Shiva. A golden light flashed from the third brother's chest. The hero was summoned from his chest, with 9 hands and 3 heads, and a vertical eye appeared on the middle head. A beam of deadly light shot out, tracing an arc in the air. In an instant, 2 airborne soldiers and their flight balloons were shot down. Ha ha ha, the hero strikes. Who dares to challenge me? Su Bai frowned. You little troublemaker, still not willing to admit defeat. No, no, Your Majesty, I concede, I concede. Too late. At the central base, for invading fighter jets took off, with the roar of the aircraft cutting through the sky. They reached the battlefield where the third brother was located in less than 3 minutes. In the 600 direction, prepare to attack. As the pilot dropped the bombs, for air-to-ground bombs fell steadily onto the body of the target. Boom. The massive explosion sent countless dirt and debris flying. The towering figure was shattered into pieces. 34 Aya. 34 The third brother was stunned to see the target blown to bits. He belonged to an elite family and had learned various combat techniques and weaknesses of different military units from a young age. Though aerial units are highly mobile, they have a significant drawback: low defense and low health, especially those that engage in ranged attacks. In this world, everything exists in a balance of power. As a result, for Iron Birds suddenly swooped down, killing their own hero. Shocked and stunned, blood spewed out. Retreat. Retreat. Su Bai sneered. Want to escape? Where to? Bring it on. Your Majesty, spare me. Don't let there be a second round. Aerial soldiers. Eliminate the enemy commander. We will clean up the enemy. The third brother fled frantically. In the sky, large groups of rocket soldiers pursued him relentlessly like mosquitoes, occasionally firing powerful bullets, causing the third brother to continuously lose health. The most painful part was that while the damage from these attacks was not high, the intensity was overwhelming. Pain and helplessness spread throughout the third brother's body as he watched himself gradually being torn apart. With a barrage of bullets, the third brother fell in battle. plundering enemy points. 3246. At the same time, a voice echoed. Commander of the enemy nation has fallen, accepting the punishment of the national fate. Locust plague. As the voice faded, it seemed that locusts growing in the jungles of the northern part of the enemy nation received the signal simultaneously. Their skin turned from green to yellow, and they began to mate and gather together, subsequently overwhelming everything in sight, devouring all the plants. Meanwhile, the enemy nation immediately entered a state of national emergency, calling on citizens to capture and consume locusts. Strive to minimize the locust plague to the lowest possible level. Unfortunately, these locusts have evolved again after gathering together. Their skin is as hard as a turtle shell, and the spikes on their hind legs are as sharp as steel needles. Wherever they go, they devour everything in sight, be it leaves, grass, grains, or even livestock. People want to spray pesticides to deal with these locusts, but the sheer number of them is overwhelming. Those brave enough to spray pesticides among the locust swarm often end up covered in them. And by the time the locusts pass, they have become nothing but bones. Agricultural aircraft spray pesticides over fertile fields to eliminate these pests. What is surprising is that these locusts dare to collide head-on with the pesticide sprayers. The bodies of the locusts get sucked into the engines, causing vibrations. Some locusts even shatter the glass and invade the cockpit to attack the operator. The machinery starts smoking, leading to explosions and triggering numerous forest fires. This all happened in just one day. Observers in the military were all astonished. If they had known, this national disaster could have struck from within just 5 hours earlier. At that time, a certain group was planning to eliminate a key figure, but unexpectedly, a group of celestial beings emerged and turned the tables, resulting in their demise. The nation narrowly escaped calamity. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Some officials swallowed hard and paid their respects. They admired the foresight of the strategist, wondering which nation's forces came to their rescue. Nearby, someone remarked that it was likely the same familiar force. The crowd was taken aback, but quickly realized it made sense. Indeed, if it wasn't he from their own country, it would be outsiders helping them. They were surprised that this individual, who had been quiet, made such a significant impact. The strategist, who had been a bit smug earlier, found the crowd now praising this person instead. What is so great about him? Previously, they heard that he was greedy and lustful, not exactly a good character. They wondered what the commander was thinking, sending his son to the battlefield. It made sense. Who would willingly replace someone like that? Gentlemen, it might not be him. It could also be from our allies. Deputy Minister, please send a letter of gratitude to our allies. Yes. Chapter 93. How can the cow keep basking in the sun? He stood up, left the pool of wine, and entered the grove of meat. He sighed deeply. The tyrants of the past were indeed brutal, wasting food by hanging it on trees. Someone, take it down and distribute it to the soldiers. Yes, sir. However, the wine pool can be left untouched. It's quite stimulating inside. The summoned soldiers do not require food supplies. Consuming such things would just be a waste. While food is being wasted here, there are cries of hunger across the region, with many suffering from famine. The locusts have ravaged the fields, and this year's rice harvest has been a total loss. Food prices have skyrocketed. Now, in a state of emergency, all nations are on high alert against potential disasters, and no one is willing to sell food to them. A phone call was made to the capital. The elder was connected. Is this President Gandhi? Elder, it was all a misunderstanding. We were merely guarding that piece of land at the foot of the western mountains for you, with no intention of occupying it. Please don't misinterpret our actions. The elder smiled and hung up the phone. The military department is preparing to send troops to take over the southern border area, as the opposing forces are retreating. Everyone was shocked. Why? Natural disasters have made our nation aid them with rice, and they have given up their occupation of our land. Everyone gasped in astonishment. The nation was truly fortunate, being saved by an unknown mysterious commander and making the opposing forces suffer, leading to the return of territory. Everyone became excited. Only Zhuge was puzzled, wondering which nation could be so generous, not only helping the commander, but also dealing a blow to the opposing forces, forcing them to return land. Stepping out of the palace, Su Bai's allies' mining vehicles were basking in the sun, not engaged in mining operations. Commander, there are no nearby mineral deposits. Is that so? Su Bai felt a bit disappointed. After all the battles and troop expansions, high-tech developments have yet to materialize. Without Tanya's presence, the palace felt somewhat empty. After checking the troops, the current status was 300 soldiers, 40 armored vehicles, 20 multifunctional infantry carriers, 85 rocket troops, and 4 fighter jets. These were the Allied units constructed after entering the foreign territory. Su Bai also had some Soviet units brought over from outside, for 3-star Rhino tanks, 3 Apocalypse tanks, along with 1 engineer and 1 3-star magnetic explosive infantry. He still had his original vehicle, a 3-star anti-aircraft tracked vehicle. Not bad. He organized the troops accordingly. 300 soldiers remained at the base, while he led the remaining armored units to explore distant areas on the map. It was uncertain whether these 300 soldiers could withstand the monsters here. Although their strength had increased by 100 points and their defense by 50 points, it still seemed insufficient compared to the monsters in this area. Without relying on the Great Wall, the Light Tower, and the bunkers, I would have likely become easy prey for the monsters here. Delicious, delicious. This is the most delicious food I've ever had. It's even more fragrant than burgers, fried chicken, and fries. No, it's even more fragrant than dishes from the most upscale Michelin restaurants. Huh, what is going on? Turning around, I saw several soldiers eating the meat they had gathered from the feast. They devoured it like starving ghosts, shoving it into their mouths desperately. Subai shook his head. These foreign brutes used knives and forks, eating bloody steak, clearly as savage people. But the next moment, the soldiers who had eaten the meat from the feast emitted a faint red aura of hostility. With ghostly energies surrounding them, they appeared somewhat eerie. Even their eyes were bloodshot, looking almost inhuman. What the heck? Could they be poisoned from eating too much? Subai was alarmed and quickly checked the soldiers' attributes. Soldier, strength, 105, agility, 103, defense, 50, health, 50, skills, position deployment, burning bullets. Note: after deployment, the soldier cannot move. Attack power increases by 50. Buffs, haunted by spirits. Feast of excess, frenzy. Subai recognized the haunted and feast buffs. However, he was unfamiliar with the frenzy and clicked to inquire. Note: after consuming a tyrant's feast, the body goes into a frenzy. Agility increases by 100 points. Wow. No wonder their agility is so high. It turns out it's due to the meat. Knowing this, Subai ordered his soldiers to pull down all the remaining meat and each to eat a piece. A miraculous event occurred. After the taken meat disappeared, it astonishingly reappeared after an hour. The feast seemed endless. Subai then tried to have them drink as well. Unfortunately, whether eating or drinking, it only enhanced this one attribute, 100 points of agility. However, this was an unexpected delight for Subai. Increasing agility means a higher evasion rate and greater chances of survival on the battlefield. Forward. Successfully captured the stronghold. Do you want to occupy the altar? No. At an uninhabited stronghold, many energy crystals were growing on the nearby rocks. Subai waved his hand and immediately sent coordinates to the allied mining vehicles at the base. 2 hectares of crystal mines were still too few. Keep moving forward. Defeated boss, Mine Guardian, Void Walker. Points gained, 835. Received. Mithril chest, open. Obtained 1764 gold coins. All troops. Continue exploring. In a radius of 100 miles, the aerial troops were conducting reconnaissance in the sky. Whenever they identified a mining area, Subai would lead the mechanized units to rush over, eliminate the guards, and seize the mines. In just one afternoon, they secured 5 new mining sites. However, these 5 mining areas had refineries that were quite far away. Fortunately, the Allied mining vehicles were equipped with superspatial teleportation for their return to the city, which minimized time wastage. The mining efficiency, however, had decreased by nearly 13. Additionally, without the protection of strong fortifications, Subai was reluctant to deploy his only Allied-based vehicle into the wild to construct a new plaza. Doing so would not only spread out their defensive forces, but also expose them to attacks from commanders of other nations. Most importantly, he had built a repair facility but was unable to produce any base vehicles from any country. Perhaps this was a limitation imposed by the system. At that moment, a rocket soldier came to report that a large stronghold had been discovered to the northeast, guarded by a boss as tall as a small mountain. Hearing this, Subai immediately became excited. Continue advancing. Meanwhile, Zhuge Fengyun was covered in dust, having barely escaped amidst the chaos. His sole hero was now heavily injured and had returned to recover within him. At that moment, he felt utterly alone. A gentle energy flowed into his body. There was a healing spring nearby. Zhuge Fengyun stuttered with excitement. When all seems lost, a ray of hope appears. But as he approached, an endless city wall blocked his path. Chapter 94. Subai's super base shocks military officials. Before him stood an endless city wall, topped with various machine guns, sandbag fortifications, and countless barbed wire defenses. Every so often, there was a watchtower. What was most peculiar was a towering lighthouse continuously emitting strange light. This wall looks familiar. Is it from the nation to the east? Or perhaps from the Cherry Blossom Nation? Or maybe the Monkey Nation? One military official responsible for the city's defense system suddenly exclaimed. None of those. This is the Great Wall. It has been garrisoned and deployed by remote units. Everyone was astonished. They knew that in the outer realms, points could be exchanged for buildings, but these were generally for traditional structures like barracks or altars. It was a gradual process to develop and establish a city-state, becoming a minor lord and eking out a living in the outer realms. However, no one had ever directly constructed a wonder from the outset. Zhuge Xin immediately remarked, since they are building our nation's wonder, It proves they are allies and will not attack us. But then, voices from the wall came through, and to their surprise, they were speaking in English. This left everyone confused. Wasn't it said that friendly nations admired our culture? Why are they speaking in a foreign language? The accent sounds like an authentic New York accent. Could it be? It's from that particular country. Everyone immediately broke into a cold sweat. Originally, the world was moving towards peace. But due to the continuous development of one nation, that country felt its status as a world leader was threatened. Subsequently, they began to announce and implement trade wars and various sanctions against that nation. Aside from not engaging in hot weapon warfare, all other means were exhausted to curb its development. If Zhuge Fengyun were to encounter people from that country, and if he had his life intact, which country are you from? The soldiers at the top of the Great Wall asked Zhuge Fengyun. They followed Su Bai's orders if other nations came. As long as they weren't engaging in threatening activities or stealing resources, they wouldn't be bothered. Thus, no attack was made on Zhuge Fengyun. However, Zhuge Fengyun was frightened and stumbled. I am from that nation. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. Meanwhile, Su Bai received a report from the soldiers. Let him in, but he cannot step into my palace, otherwise, it's kill on sight. Yes, sir. Su Bai didn't have time to deal with someone like Zhuge Fengyun, because, according to the prompt, 3 true fearsome demon kings and their servant army would emerge from the outer realm. After defeating them, he would gain a large number of points and national fortune rewards. Both of these things were of great interest to Su Bai. Just the lavish feasts had already brought him immense pleasure. Seeing some wonders would further enrich his cultural and historical knowledge. To be a well-rounded young man in spiritual civilization. All troops, advance. Zhuge Fengyun arrived by a spring and began to slowly recover from his injuries. Unexpectedly, within the Great Wall, there was a massive city. It had various buildings, many constructed with steel and machinery. It exuded a magical, high-tech aura, stunningly beautiful. Just then, on one side of the spring, mechanical sounds echoed as a tall building rose from the ground. It was nearly 100 meters high. The top was made of bright glass, resembling a special pagoda. Which country is this? So peculiar. If it were from that particular country, one could still see a massive traditional palace in the distance atop the mountain. There was a feeling of a blend of styles. At that moment, rows of humans holding firewood sticks and wearing berets walked past him. He wanted to stop one to ask what was going on here, but those individuals all looked fierce, so Zhuge Fengyun dismissed the thought. After this group of people left, a blonde beauty in a military green vest swept past him. Wait, this beauty, what are you all doing? In the next moment, Zhuge Fengyun realized that this beauty was not the commander here, but rather a hero of the commander. He muttered to himself, a human hero? Or just a beauty? What can she do? Fight through the night until dawn. He shook his head, uncertain about which country the commander belonged to. So many human troops were used. For a moment, he thought of Su Bai, but he shook his head again. No, that guy's troops looked different from these. From the uniforms to the weapons, they belonged to entirely different categories. Zhuge Fengyun prided himself on his exceptional memory. He had been in the youth class of prestigious universities since childhood. A prodigy. He would not mistake that. The armored units arrived at the coordinates of the recent terrifying demon lord. In the distance, besides the massive terrifying demon lord, there were countless cave demons and ghouls, with gargoyles soaring in the sky. It seemed like a well-prepared force, a tough nut to crack. At the same time, commanders from 5 countries gathered together to discuss attack strategies. As soon as Su Bai arrived, the commanders from the other countries asked him to get off the vehicle. Among these 5 countries, 2 were from the European continent, while the other 3 were from Africa. The commander from the European country disdainfully said, "In a moment, you 3 countries will be responsible for holding back the outer enemies, while our 2 European countries will attack the terrifying demon lord. Everyone can earn points." Su Bai's eyelids twitched. These European folks were really calculating. One of the African commanders stepped forward, very dissatisfied. "Why should we? The terrifying demon lord and the burning legion are public, not a private instance. Why should you reap the benefits of fighting the boss while we suffer the burden of clearing the minions?" Exactly. Another African commander also stood up in protest. The 2 Europeans exchanged glances and laughed heartily. Why? Just because of this. One of the leading European commanders waved his hand. Behind him, over 1,000 Saruman-strong orcs raised their banners. Each of their green, muscular skins and exaggerated tusks proved that these troops possessed extraordinary strength, definitely not comparable to ordinary beastmen. He then slowly said, "I am at the Silver Tiger symbol level, leading over 1,000 elite strong orcs. Can I take on the heavy responsibility of killing the terrifying demon lord?" His gaze was sharp, piercing as he looked at the 2 African commanders. The 2 gulped. This European commander indeed had exceptional strength, with even the most ordinary strong orc having a power level of 70 points. It should be noted that in the outer realm, killing an opponent could earn points from them. The commander from Europa has shown exceptional mercy by not killing those 3 individuals from the Dark Continent. Now, There is no way to oppose the dirty and exhausting work. After all, they are all mere pawns. It can only be said that they were driven by greed to gather and seek the burning legion led by the Fear Demon King. Chapter 95. The coalition of 5 nations against the burning legion. Allocation seems to have issues. The individuals from the Dark Continent reluctantly agreed. In the end, the eyes of the 2 Europeans fell on Subai. However, they did not ask what Subai meant. Daring to steal from us? The only outcome is death. They merely smiled coldly, saying that if their people were killed by others in foreign lands, the entire nation would suffer. Everyone, think it through. After saying that, the group began to arrange their formation. The 3 individuals from the Dark Continent and Subai were placed at the forefront. The 2 European Saruman Orc army and the Middle-earth Ringwraith army were positioned at the back to support. The Europeans had a perfect plan, making the commanders from the colored skin nations serve as cannon fodder in the front. Once both sides had worn each other down, the 2 of them would reap the benefits. It was a sweet deal. After all, these 4 individuals in front couldn't possibly handle the 2 of them. After all, these 2 were powerful beings at the silver rank, commanding thousands of troops. If they cooperated honestly, there might be a chance for survival. Any resistance would lead to only one outcome: death. Once the formation was properly arranged, the commander of the European nations gave the order, and all troops charged forward together. The Zulu warriors from the Dark Continent let out war cries, increasing the strength of their entire force by 25. They crashed head-on into the burning legion. In an instant, the battlefield was filled with smoke, flashes of blades, raging flames, and flying flesh. The Zulu warriors raised their battle axes over their heads, using them to cleave through the nearby ghouls. However, they were soon driven back by the intense sonic attacks from the gargoyles in the sky, sustaining injuries and becoming battered. Another individual from the Dark Continent, controlling his tribe's skinning elder, relentlessly retaliated against the gargoyles above with poisoned blow darts. However, the results were not ideal. Their poison only left faint marks on the gargoyles, failing to kill them outright. This was because the gargoyles had hardened skin, and the elder's attacks were primarily toxic. The troops were severely countered. The 3 individuals from the Dark Continent felt a deep sense of frustration. If they resisted, they would be killed by the Europeans. If they did not resist, they would merely be used as fodder. It was incredibly uncomfortable, especially with the enemy troops pressing in from the rear. They couldn't even engage in guerrilla warfare. Should we take action now? They wondered, planning to strike at the side of the burning legion, attacking fiercely like pincers, aiming to penetrate their core and eliminate the Fear Demon King. Let's not rush. Let them expend some energy first. Right now, it's a zero-sum game. We'll take the initiative to flank and engage in a war of attrition with the Fear Demon King. By then, our forces will be reduced, while theirs will be bolstered. If these dark-skinned slaves rebel against us, we would end up as the ones enslaved. That makes sense. The 2 held their positions. Up ahead, 3 individuals were already heavily damaged. Of course, they had also taken down quite a number of ghouls, cave demons, and gargoyles. But it was clear they were struggling. Why aren't you 2 deploying your troops? The commander, who was watching the commotion, suddenly turned around and realized that the previous commander, who was of a different ethnicity, was standing behind them. Hadn't he personally led the charge? You coward. As a commander and a general, how can you hide in the back? Get to the front and lead your troops into battle, or I will eliminate you. But I never agreed to join your alliance. I'm just giving a friendly reminder. Let us each fight our own battles. Saying this, Subai boarded his multifunctional infantry vehicle and left the area. You coward. Ringwraith army. Pursue him. Another individual quickly tried to intervene. Stop. This is not the time to cause chaos. One of his troops cannot withstand our coalition of 5 nations. If he wants to run, let him. Subai found it baffling. He had been inexplicably pulled into their alliance and placed at the forefront. Initially, he wanted to monopolize the monster spawning point of the Burning Legion. Unexpectedly, 5 more people arrived to share the spoils. He was already somewhat displeased. Now, asking him to only fight the minor monsters was unacceptable. However, since they weren't attacking him, Subai, not one to stir trouble, decided to let them each handle their own affairs and maneuvered his armored troops around the Burning Legion to the rear. Charge! In the rear of the Burning Legion, there were only ranged attacking cave lords, a type of giant spider capable of long-distance attacks. With a mere gesture, they could release venomous spiders to devour their enemies. However, with 5 apocalyptic tanks leading the way, these little spiders couldn't penetrate the tank's formidable armor. Additionally, the defensive bonuses made them nearly indestructible. The Grey Bear tanks advanced from both flanks, like 2 dragon lines crashing into the enemy formation, disrupting their ranks. Following closely behind, Subai's main force continued to push forward. One multifunctional infantry vehicle was equipped with a level 3 magnetic storm infantry, Professor Yang, who continuously unleashed chain lightning, turning rows of enemies into charred corpses. It was fierce. This single combination of magnetic storm infantry and multifunctional infantry vehicle was akin to a thunder god. One alone could wreak havoc in this grand formation. Looking back, after the integration of two different factions' troops, their power was certainly impressive. Subai planned to create more such combinations. Of course, the remaining multifunctional infantry vehicles were tasked with air defense support. Thus, this unit easily tore a huge gap in the enemy's rear, swallowing many of their troops one by one. Meanwhile, the three comrades at the front, who were already at their limit, felt an instant relief, collapsing to the ground and gasping for breath. The commanders from two European countries in the rear, seeing this situation, immediately decided to send troops to attack the Fear Demon King. How dare they? They wished to eliminate the Burning Legion. This is the territory conquered by the Burning Legion. Seeing himself besieged from all sides, the Fear Demon King spread his arms wide, releasing two balls of green flame into the sky. Soon after, the heavens roared, and meteors began to fall, crashing into the troops of the comrades and the European commanders. In contrast, Subai's troops managed to retreat unscathed. The reason was simple. Subai had previously controlled the Fear Demon King and had witnessed the scene when Hellfire was summoned. Therefore, when the atmospheric anomalies occurred, Subai immediately notified his army to withdraw from the attack range. Additionally, with the wind, forest, fire, and mountain relics for acceleration, as well as the passive acceleration from the feasting environment, they moved like lightning. Even the heavy apocalyptic treasure narrowly escaped being struck by the falling meteors. On the other hand, the coalition of 5 nations suffered greatly from the meteor strikes. Not only did the falling meteors cause area damage, but they also caused disorientation. After landing, Hellfire entities with magic immunity and sacrificial abilities erupted from the meteors, attacking the coalition forces. The powerful combination of massive meteors and green ghost flames proved to be formidable. With a wave of their hands, the Hellfire units continuously scorched the coalition forces. The air was filled with the smell of burnt flesh and various cries of agony. Retreat. Reform the formation. The European commander ordered the Saruman strong orcs and ringwraith troops to withdraw quickly. Meanwhile, the 3 comrades faced unfortunate circumstances, with their rear troops being continually decimated by the powerful Hellfire. One of them was turned to ash by the flames, while the other 2 attempted to assist but were blocked by the inferno, unable even to recover the body. A mechanical sound echoed 3 times across the blue planet. A serious malaria outbreak was about to strike a certain country in the Black region as a national disaster punishment. This news had already surfaced, and the people of the entire Black region expressed their protests. However, it was all in vain. Due to the historical context, the inhabitants of the continent were originally colonizers. Their technology and military forces are more advanced. Even if the entire region unites to form an alliance, it cannot compete with the coalition of European nations. This coalition is made up of various countries on the continent, sharing similar policies, currency, and language. Their military strategies are also aligned. If one country faces an invasion, the others will quickly send troops for support. Conversely, if one country invades another, the coalition members will also mobilize to support the aggression. It can be described as a highly centralized alliance of states, holding significant influence on the international stage. Therefore, the loss of a single individual from the region seems futile. On the other side, the coalition forces that were not attacked by external forces re-entered the battlefield, under the protection of advanced tanks. Their armored units charged back into enemy lines. The sound of artillery roared like thunder, and the intensity of the conflict escalated. In this offensive and defensive battle, the enemy soldiers faced increasing casualty rates, with thousands perishing in the flames of war every moment. Protected by their advanced tanks, the coalition forces were unstoppable, suffering minimal losses, while the opposing alliance appeared disorganized and overwhelmed. Curse those unyielding spirits. All units, advance with Hellfire, commanded the coalition commander. The spirits, a powerful form of undead knights, were able to regenerate continuously after being scorched by Hellfire. This line of spirits managed to block the advance of Hellfire. Both sides entered a brutal tug-of-war. However, the situation seemed easier for the coalition forces. The fearsome Demon King took to the skies, attempting to evade the dual cannon shells of the advanced tanks. As being hit was excruciating. Little did he know, the conditions above were just as perilous, as the coalition's multifunctional infantry vehicles launched missiles, targeting the lurking demons below. Soon, the multifunctional infantry vehicles reached level 3. At that moment, the coalition leader noted the impressive attributes. Multifunctional infantry vehicle, strength, 230, agility, 120, defense, 90, health, 600, skill, multifunctional conversion, full speed enhancement. Note: this skill allows the vehicle to change its form to adapt to various combat requirements. Skill increases the vehicle's movement speed and attack speed by 50. This second skill was unlocked after reaching 3 stars. Coupled with the leader's relics and passive abilities, their effectiveness in battle was greatly enhanced. Under the enhancement of the three elements, the attack speed was boosted to 210. Now, launching missiles, if we refer to the adjustable speed in the game, the maximum speed is 10. Currently, the speed of the multifunctional infantry vehicle is 31. That's more than 3 times the speed, which would definitely result in frame drops in the game. However, in reality, one can only feel the exhilarating experience of rapid-fire shots. The Fear Demon King was constantly hit by missiles, producing a series of explosion sounds. His health bar was rapidly decreasing. Damn Earthlings! I will kill you all. The Fear Demon King roared in anger as his health bar emptied. Ultimately, he transformed into thousands of bats. These bats flapped their wings and charged towards Su Bai's armored units. Several soldiers who came into contact with the bats were instantly drained of all their blood. After the swarm of bats passed, they were left as mere corpses. This move caught Su Bai off guard. He didn't expect that despite being on the brink of death, this boss would still pull off a big move. Su Bai quickly dove into the multifunctional infantry vehicle to evade the attacking blood-sucking bats. The bats incessantly collided with every armored unit of Su Bai. Inside the multifunctional infantry vehicle, Su Bai could only hear the outside sounds of impact, like frying soybeans. It was noisy and unbearable. Attack! Eliminate this swarm of bats. All units received Su Bai's new order. The tanks and multifunctional infantry vehicles began to roar with gunfire once again. However, this time, without the support of the coal trucks, the attacks lacked splash damage. The tanks couldn't hit the small bats in the sky at all. The missiles from the multifunctional infantry vehicles targeted some of the nearby bat swarms. The explosions also damaged several of Su Bai's infantry vehicles. A few were even blown apart. Nevertheless, even with this, the Fear Demon King's final strike did not defeat Su Bai's allies. Meanwhile, after the Fear Demon King's death, many of his puppet Hellfires also perished. The powerful Saruman Orc of Commander Europa withstood much of the Hellfire's attack damage. Additionally, the army of Ring Wraiths, along with the Charred Remnants and Black Demonic Horses, was slowly recovering. Charge! Eliminate the Fear Demon King. As these troops closed in, Su Bai opened a diamond treasure chest. A beam of golden light shot out, and a token appeared in his hand. Fortune Token, single-use item, rare, attribute. After use, it randomly generates a small fortune for the country. Item cooldown time, 5 hours. Note: the item cooldown time means that the item can only be used 5 hours after obtaining it. A small fortune? So this is what the commander meant by fortune. Su Bai murmured softly. This friend from a certain country, what you have in your hand is the fortune token, right? In the distance, a commander from a European nation inquired of Su Bai. So what? My name is Hobit Tori, from a neutral country. And I joined this sacred war in the foreign realm to enhance my nation's fortune. You must know, our country is small, and being neutral, we do not have an army, so national fortune is even more important. Hobit Tori's eyes fixed greedily on the fortune token in Su Bai's hand, clearly displaying a wolf-like greed. Chapter 97. Do you have the strength to take it from me? Su Bai smiled faintly, tossing the fortune token into the air before catching it again, appearing nonchalant. I earned this, and I Haven T joined your faction. So what does it have to do with you? Another commander from a European nation stirred the pot, saying, You can't say that. We all worked hard against the Burning Legion earlier, and you alone are hoarding the fortune token. Isn't that a bit too much? After his provocation, the two other men began to feel discontent. After all, they had put in the most effort, suffered the most damage, and lost a good brother. If it weren't for us holding the front line, how could you have one so easily? Hand over the fortune token for a proper redistribution. Yes, a proper redistribution. Indeed. Without receiving the fortune token, they felt psychologically unbalanced and were ready to take it by force. Su Bai's expression turned cold as he replied icily, This thing is mine. I earned it. If you want to take it from me, you'll have to see if you can withstand my iron torrent. Su Bai snapped his fingers, and the apocalyptic tank moved into formation, followed by the grisly tank, with Su Bai protected in the middle, quickly forming an iron wall. A glint of cunning appeared in Hobit Tori's eyes. He was a strong individual from his country. His nation, while neutral, had globally renowned banks that attracted a lot of dirty money from criminal gangs and corrupt officials, all while ensuring client confidentiality. Thus, despite its small size, the country boasted a high per capita income and was not short on funds. How about this, brother? I'll give you $100 million for that fortune token in your hand. $100 million. That was a significant sum. Enough to convert into a considerable amount of gold. To be honest, Su Bai was tempted, but then he thought of another point. If it was worth that much, it indicated that the fortune token's value was even higher. So Su Bai replied, Cash is too troublesome. I've heard that many wealthy merchants from various countries have stored a lot of gold with you. Your country has also amassed a significant amount of gold. If you can produce 1,000 tons, we can make an exchange. Hobitori nearly spat blood upon hearing that. Damn it. I've gathered a considerable amount of undisclosed assets from global elites here, and the total gold reserves are only 1,042 tons. How dare you demand 1,000 tons alone? Are you out of your mind? Another commander from a European alliance grew impatient. As descendants of colonizers, negotiation was their last resort. Their first choice was outright seizure. Listen, friend from the Eastern nation, 100 million is already a generous offer. Your wisest move is to sell to us. We represent a powerful coalition, the strongest alliance in the world. You should understand the consequences of opposing us. The response was firm. 1,000 tons of gold delivered to the Eastern nation. And this token is yours. This infuriated the two European commanders, who began to issue harsh threats. We are a coalition of 5 nations. Do you really think you can leave without agreeing? So it's outright theft? What can you do about it? Such arrogance. Watch your words. You too. Seize the Eastern National. We'll grant 200 million to each of your countries as compensation. The two nations, struggling financially, eagerly mobilized their remaining forces upon hearing the offer and charged forward recklessly. Overestimating yourselves. With a wave of the hand, tanks advanced to lead the assault. Warriors from one region were instantly crushed upon encountering the heavy armored vehicles, with many perishing before the turrets could even fire. A series of explosions followed. One individual was obliterated by concentrated artillery fire. Points seized, 5,743. Commander of a certain nation has fallen, triggering a national penalty. Outbreak of a deadly virus. Just a minor advance by the tanks. And an imperial commander was lost. The other individual was too terrified to press on. A dominant voice declared, I advise everyone not to push too far. Defeating me would bring calamity upon your nations. Moreover, I was the one who defeated the Fear Lord, so the token of fortune rightfully belongs to me. Another individual, risking annihilation by the European commanders, swiftly retreated 10 kilometers from the battlefield's flank. Only the 2 European commanders remained. Don't think scaring off one minor figure makes you powerful. In our eyes, your force of 100 units is no match for us 2 holders of the Silver Tiger insignia. Then come and try? One European commander immediately ordered his enhanced warriors to attack. These warriors, far superior to standard infantry, were super soldiers bred with greater strength, speed, and agility, and were imbued with a mental imprint that kept them in a perpetual state of frenzy. Each one possessed the combat prowess and resilience of a hero-level character. Perish. Saruman's strong orcs braved the tank fire and charged towards Subai's tanks. They began attacking Subai's Grey Bear tanks. These orcs were fearless, and surprisingly managed to destroy several of Subai's tanks. However, the casualties on their side were even heavier, with dozens to hundreds of strong orcs falling every moment. The firepower of the Apocalypse tanks was overwhelming, with each shot claiming the lives of many orcs. Not to mention the multifunctional infantry vehicles, which made it even easier to eliminate these orcs. In less than 3 rounds of combat, the casualty ratio was already 30-1. Seeing this situation, the Europa commander was sweating profusely, and his companion, Hobbit Tori, quickly said, You should retreat. Let my Ringwraith army take over. As the opposing side retreated, Subai did not back down, but continued to pursue. By the time the enemy retreated back to their main camp, nearly 1,000 of Saruman's strong orcs had only about 200 safely returned. The rest were either dead or wounded on the ground. Subai did not let those wounded orcs go either, running them over with tanks. I already said, we each fight our own battles. Yet you insist on showing off in front of me. As he spoke, a strong orc at his feet was instantly shot in the head by a Browning. The powerful killing intent scared the commander so much that he fell to the ground, no longer daring to meet Subai's gaze. It was clear he was afraid. He never expected Subai's forces to be so formidable. The powerful Saruman strong orcs were no match at all. It was truly terrifying. Hobbit Tori stepped forward, pointing at Subai. Dragon Country man, your troops are indeed powerful, but your weaknesses are too obvious. You will never defeat my Ringwraith army. To his surprise, Subai stepped forward with a smile and said, I wonder where your confidence comes from. It's quite naive. Hobbit Tori swallowed hard. Despite having a larger number of troops, he felt his morale and prestige had been undermined by the recent skirmish. Now, the enemy seemed even more arrogant. Furious, he shouted, seeking death. Ringwraith army. Cut off the enemy commander's head. The Ringwraith knights, riding on black steeds and wielding dark, European-style swords, charged forward. They didn't seem as agile as Jiang Shaoqing's elven troops. But with each hoofprint, black smoke erupted from the ground in an eerie manner. Steel torrent. Destroy them. With Subai's command, the armored tanks simultaneously erupted with sparks. The artillery fire penetrated the enemy ranks, and the sound of countless horses neighing echoed across the sky. Those knights on horseback fell one after another, crashing heavily to the ground. As soon as these knights got back on their feet, they were met with a new round of artillery fire. Explosions echoed as many knights were shattered by the artillery fire. Limbs and severed body parts flew through the air, and the smell of blood permeated the surroundings. Subai's cannon fire churned the ground, mixing the soil with blood, interspersed with various body fragments, intensifying the stench to a point that it almost stung the nose. These knights fell like withered flowers, dying without value in this foreign land. As the cannon fire ceased, the heated barrels cooled down. The ground was littered with charred corpses, resembling a hellish battlefield. Unfortunately, Hobit Tori had now become a lone figure, with no possibility of summoning new soldiers. What words of farewell could he have? A smile crept across Subai's face. Those who dared to attack him would only meet a grim fate here. Hobit Tori was deeply shaken by the earlier scene. The firepower was truly terrifying. His army of knights seemed as fragile as paper in comparison. However, after a brief shock, he regained his composure and began to smile as well. Impressive. You are indeed formidable. If you were born in our continent, you would stand out among all the member states. It's a pity you are facing me, the immortal knight, with the power of the ring. I command the army of knights. They are immortal. They are eternal. Saying this, he raised his right hand and made a vulgar gesture. On his middle finger, a shimmering golden ring sparkled. What is this? Subai furrowed his brows. All right, let me show you my powerful relic. Magic ring, relic, defense, 1 skill, undead. Invisibility. Note, if your troops belong to the undead faction, they can gain the benefits of the magic ring, as long as the unit's brain is unharmed. Their bodily functions will return to normal no matter how severe the damage. Note, skill activates invisibility for 5 minutes, with a cooldown of 5 hours. Did you see that? Did you see that? Immortal. Immortal. The magic ring perfectly complements my army of knights. It is an invincible existence. As Hobit Tori showcased his magic ring's attributes, the knights that had died and turned into severed limbs began to slowly regenerate, along with their steeds. The broken limbs gradually reassembled, returning to their original positions. The bodies charred by the cannon fire slowly regained their form. In less than a minute, this army was completely revived, with no reduction in combat power. What do you think? What do you think? Your unit's output is indeed high, but I believe it must consume magic. My troops can respawn infinitely. When your magic runs out, you will become a mere piece of meat on my plate. Ha! Subai was startled. The relic was indeed powerful. With the magic ring, his undead units could gain almost permanent life and combat ability. Just right, it perfectly matched his undead rebirth skill. Although the existence time of his undead after possession was fixed, if they were killed by others, they would truly die. With this ring, wouldn't his entire army be invincible during the possession period? That would be incredible. At that moment, the greed that was once in the opponent's eyes disappeared, and instead, Subai's eyes began to gleam with greed, ready to kill and seize treasures. It was indeed an interesting affair. The army of ring spirits charged again. Once more, the ring spirit knights continued to assault Subai's tank armor. Thank you for revealing the equipment attributes. It seems that as long as the head isn't fatally injured, one can remain invincible and enjoy the battle. Subai clasped his hands together and bowed. This left the distant Hobit Tori looking bewildered. Is this guy begging for mercy? Too bad. It was too late to save his head. He ordered again. However, something unexpected happened. As one of the ring's spirit knights at the front charged, its head suddenly exploded. The other spirit knights followed suit, their heads bursting one after another. Some even had their heads disappear while running. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In less than a minute, over 100 ring spirit knights fell to the ground, all with injuries only to their heads. Impossible. How could this be? The opponent was using heavy artillery siege equipment. Although the damage was immense, the attacks shouldn't be able to target a specific point on the ring spirit knights. How did he do it? A multifunctional infantry vehicle stopped. A blonde woman with big waves got out, holding dual guns and wearing a slightly mischievous smile as she looked at Subai. I hope I'm not late, Commander. This woman had an excellent figure, resembling a perfect Barbie doll. She was fit, with long limbs, and had some particularly exaggerated features that were divine. The rest of her proportions were well coordinated, with muscular lines on her forearms. She wore a military green crop top that stopped at her abdomen, revealing her belly button. One could vaguely see her perfect hourglass figure. Tanya, don't call me Commander, call me Master. All right, Commander Master. Behind Tanya, several multifunctional infantry vehicles came to a halt. Snipers wearing blue berets got out from them. Chapter 99, Every Shot a Headshot. Subai summons hero Tanya to rampage. These snipers were a special unit prepared by Subai to deal with the absence of radiation engineers. Coincidentally, the enemy's faction had units with infinite regeneration capabilities, specifically undead troops. The radiation from the engineers was ineffective but highlighted the sniper's moment to shine. Sitting in the multifunctional infantry vehicle, they scored headshot after headshot. This was also thanks to the attributes of the magic ring displayed by Hobit Tori. If the headshot doesn't occur, they revive infinitely. This aligns perfectly with the sniper's headshot strategy, making it a professional fit. The group of snipers saluted Su-bai before returning to the multi-functional infantry vehicle. A massive army of wraiths was being taken down one by the snipers, prompting Su-bai's curiosity about the sniper's attributes. Sniper, strength, 130, agility, 115, defense, 56, health, 210, skill, headshot. Note, this skill is passive. Each bullet fired deals 10 damage to buildings or armor, and 1,000 damage to other living beings. No wonder the wraiths could still struggle under the fire of the apocalypse tanks, but against the snipers, they fell in one shot. It turned out they could deal 1,000 damage to enemies. Just as Su-bai gasped in surprise, the snipers leveled up continuously, reaching a 3-star rank. Consequently, the damage they inflicted on enemies increased from 1,000 to 2,500. Meanwhile, Tanya blew Su-bai a kiss and said, "Hi baby, let's go," inviting him into the multifunctional infantry vehicle. The allied infantry vehicle could only accommodate one unit at a time, but Su-bai and Tanya squeezed into one, making it quite cramped. However, this did not hinder Tanya from continuously attacking the enemy through the vehicle's firing port, her laughter ringing out joyfully as she fired her 2 custom Desert Eagles. At the same time, Su-bai got into the groove, maneuvering the vehicle to keep pace with Tanya, avoiding any mishaps. One by one, the wraiths fell with bullets to their foreheads, accompanied by Tanya's cheerful laughter. "Come on, baby." Su-bai pulled out his Browning and shouted at Tanya in front of him. "Don't think just because the tiger doesn't show its might. I'm a cute little kitty. Let me show you the power of my big silver gun." Su-bai's Browning also extended through the narrow firing port as he pulled the trigger. In that vehicle, 3 guns unleashed a torrent of bullets simultaneously. Tanya's shooting talent was clearly superior to Su-bai's, with a wave of her hand. She had already taken out many enemies with her dual guns. It could be said that she was attacking 2 targets simultaneously. On the other hand, Su-bai was very focused, concentrating on targets that Tanya, with her slim figure, could not see. Laughter and joy echoed in the multifunctional infantry vehicle as waves of enemies fell to the ground. Tanya's attacks were not as powerful as those of a sniper, so the heads of the enemies she shot down remained mostly intact, only with a bullet hole at the center of the forehead, hitting the bullseye perfectly. Su-bai's Browning had great power and a strong recoil, like the engine of an off-road vehicle, not pursuing speed but focusing on strength and impact. Enemies. Enemies. Get up. Get up. Why aren't you moving? Hobbit Tori looked at the fallen foes in confusion. Some were clearly shot in the head, while others suddenly fell off their horses with their heads intact. After nearly 5 minutes, none of them revived. What was going on? But at that moment, he had no time to ponder further. Another commander, tasked with containing Saruman's orcs, urged him, "Run. If we don't escape now, it will be too late. Or surrender." Hobbit Tori was sweating profusely, feeling lost. He hadn't expected that both sides, which he thought were evenly matched, would end up in such a predicament. What kind of exorcism technique was being used by the other side that caused his undead troops to truly perish? He mechanically nodded. "I am Commander John of the Empire, and the youngest member of the Royal Queen's Guard. We announce our surrender." The commander from the Empire waved a white flag, requesting to surrender. "Moreover, I will request a substantial sum from the Queen as compensation for this defeat." Su-bai jumped down from the vehicle, feeling uninterested. What kind of compensation? If the other side handed over all the treasure chests they found from the Burning Legion and that magic ring, he might consider sparing their lives. Seeing that Su-bai was open to negotiation, John was overjoyed. He mentally set a figure, believing the other side would be satisfied. 8 million. 8 million silver. He loudly proclaimed to Su-bai. Upon hearing this, Su-bai simply turned to a nearby sniper and said, "Eliminate him." "Understood, Commander." A bullet was fired, and half of John's head exploded. Brain matter mixed with fragments of skull scattered everywhere, some even splattering onto Hobbit Tori's face. He was so shocked that he fell to the ground. Points plundered from the opponent. 85-42. The commander of the Empire falls, accepting the punishment of fate. As the nation is shrouded in the fog of poppies for 3 years, poppies, also known as opium. After killing John, Su-bai simply commented, "Silly kid, really? Learn some history next time." Compensation of 8 million taels of silver, details of modern humiliating history. Hobbits struggled to get up from the ground, staring at John's decapitated body. He could barely stand. The opponent was so barbaric. They actually killed prisoners. Offering 8 million taels of silver was not enough to satisfy their appetite. The opponent's mechanized troops swiftly surrounded hobbits. He even saw many of Su-bai's snipers positioned on top of the tanks. "Please don't kill me. Do you know that if you kill me, all the remaining countries in the Europa Alliance will know, and they'll put a bounty on your head, even here, or back in the real world. You, and even your good friends and family, might be in trouble." Su-bai stood atop the great apocalypse tank, disdainfully saying, "I've heard this kind of threat more than once, so what? Even if the United Nations wanted me, I wouldn't care. Anyway, I don't like going abroad. Subai had no intention of killing him for now. After all, he was still wearing the magic ring on his middle finger. If a shell accidentally shattered the sacred relic, it would truly pain Subai. Just then, the opponent suddenly activated the magic ring's ability, stealth, hoping to slip away from the encirclement and escape. Tanya beside him was also surprised. How could this living person just vanish? Commander, what's going on? Subai simply smiled and said, "It's nothing. Open the door, release the dogs." Chapter 100. Take him out and feed the dogs. Raising dogs was purely a hobby for Subai. This time in the outer realm, he felt an unprecedented sense of freedom and no pressure. The base vehicles were deployed, forming an ironclad barrier like the Great Wall, along with the soldiers' defenses and the support of Patriot missile systems. The sense of security was overwhelming. Unexpectedly, the police dogs also had their shining moment. 3 police dogs bared their teeth as Subai's exclusive air defense vehicle opened its hatch. The 3 dogs could hardly wait to rush out. Following Subai's instructions, they pounced forward. In the void, the 3 dogs fiercely bit at an empty space. As the dogs tore at the air, blood surprisingly flowed out. Hobbits materialized from the void, howling in agony. One police dog pounced on his arm and bit down hard, severing one of his arms. The other 2 legs were also torn off by 2 other police dogs. The upper body of the person was severely mutilated. One of the police dogs that bit an arm let out a whimpering sound, wagging its tail as it brought the arm to Subai. Good dog, good dog. Subai removed the magical ring from the arm, and the police dog immediately swallowed the arm whole. These basic units would be incredibly weak without the various enhancements from Subai's items and wonders. However, now, not only did they have those enhancements, but they had also feasted on meat from the forest. Their agility and strength were off the charts. This particular police dog was already stronger than an average wild creature in the area. Therefore, it could be said that Hobbit's Tori died at the jaws of such a super police dog, and it was a fitting end. Subai wiped the blood off and put the magical ring on his middle finger. The dark, golden glow of the relic was intoxicating. With 5 hours of invincible units. Wasn't this an incredible boost? Just then, a full-screen notification came from the outer space. Commander from the Dragon Nation, Subai, has killed more than 3 commanders from other nations consecutively, a grave offense, now marked in red. As punishment, every 3 hours, this person's coordinates will be revealed once. With a full-screen announcement. Having killed the 4th person, he was now marked in red. It seemed that although this place allowed free PK battles, the space still preferred cooperation against the local lord. Disputes were permissible, but excessive killing was not allowed. With his coordinates exposed now, he believed it would attract the pursuit of enemies, especially from the European Union. He had already taken down 2 of their members, and he was sure they would come looking for him. But what could they do? All troops, continue the sweep. Subai waved his hand, wrapped his arm around Tanya's waist, and boarded the anti-air tracked vehicle. He continued to exchange gunfire techniques with the opponent. Bastard. The people from the Dragon Nation actually killed Tori and John. They are trying to start an all-out war with us. The European Union was the largest national alliance in the world, and the Dragon Nation was practically courting death. That's right, we must eliminate both commanders from this nation. At the European Union's main base, several commanders were furious. They had always bullied other countries and had never been bullied themselves. Slamming the table, they decided to pursue Subai. On the other side, the 2-headed ogre mage cast a bloodthirsty spell. Zhao Haoyan's body rapidly grew larger, and his attack speed increased. With one strike, he pierced the heartstone of the Hellfire. The massive Hellfire immediately crumbled. Zhao Haoyan secured the demon sword bestowed by the Emperor, which was the sword of his deceased son. It could be said that Zhao Haoyan was thriving in the Cherry Blossom Nation. At this moment, he also noticed that the coordinates of Subai appeared on the public screen. Subai? Subai, I've been searching for you so hard. I didn't expect you to come out on your own. All troops, march towards the coordinates at full speed. Zhao Haoyan vowed to kill Subai. Subai had killed too many people, causing chaos in the entire outer domain. Even in the real world, many awkward situations arose because of this. Earlier, the diviner sent officials to express gratitude to other countries for helping his son, Zhuge Fengyun, escape death. However, unexpectedly, after inquiring with many countries, those nations were unaware of the situation. Instead, when they reached out to the ambassadors of the sun-never-setting empire and the country of Switzerland, the ambassadors reacted sharply, scolding the military officials. The military officials were left dumbfounded. Upon returning to the command center, they realized that Subai had killed people from those countries. Their attempt to express thanks was seen as a complete humiliation in the eyes of the ambassadors. This turned into a farce, leaving the diviner in a very awkward position. Cough, cough. What I meant to say is that I predicted this in advance. We are bound to have a conflict with the commanders of the European countries. Now that we have achieved a great victory, I sent the military officials to offer condolences, hoping they wouldn't be too sad, and to showcase our national strength. The diviner argued while covering his nose. The other military officials in the command room couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. The diviner was truly talented. Even in a critical military situation, he was still making jokes. The third elder shook his head at the antics of the diviner below. However, with the military situation tense, there was no time to deal with the trivial matters of the diviner. The third elder scanned the crowd. In this case, having already offended the European alliance, how do we continue our diplomacy? The diviner seized another opportunity to showcase his wit and immediately jumped in. Third elder, I suggest we settle this with compensation. Although Su Bai is a fierce general of our country, his bloodthirsty nature and random killings will affect our nation's reputation internationally. Li Yunlong glared. Stop spouting nonsense. Can't you see the situation clearly? 2 people from the other side have died, which means that those who attacked Su Bai were not just from one country. This is obviously bullying the weak. Do you still want to compensate this kind of rogue nation? Are you even a citizen of our country? Quiet. Everyone calm down. The third elder raised his hands to calm the room. As a major international power, our country must also pay attention to its international image. But what General Li Yunlong said is correct. This is clearly bullying the weak. So he said, let's observe for now and discuss it later. Wanted criminal Su Bai coordinates. 312, 854. Behind a mountain, Su Bai arranged his troops and hid them. He believed that it wouldn't be long before the forces of the European countries would come to kill him. At that time, this place would become the graveyard for these people. After 2 hours, a large troop appeared from the east, flying a flag with a 4-pointed star. It goes without saying that this was the alliance flag of a certain regional coalition. To Su Bai's surprise, another troop appeared from the west. These soldiers were tall and imposing, exuding a fierce presence as they marched. Why does this troop look so familiar? The double-headed ogre? Could it be Zhao Haoyan? Su Bai couldn't be certain, as there were many with the same type of troops awakened in this world. The chances of overlap shouldn't be too high, right? However, these were just minor details. After all, those who dared to seek him out were definitely courting death. If they came, they shouldn't run. They should just lie down and accept their fate. According to the plan, Su Bai arrived at a hill. One hand continuously played with the magic ring in the other hand, watching the 2 armies with a smile. To the east, the vanguard of a certain empire was the first to spot Su Bai. They quickly dispatched their siege troops to report back to the main force. During the march, the commanders of several other empires were still discussing how to disperse and search for Su Bai's whereabouts. The commander of one nation said, "Everyone, our army will handle the flanks. You main forces focus on the front." The commander of another kingdom replied, "According to the intel, the enemy is moving swiftly. My catapult army must deploy first to prevent the enemy from escaping." Report. "An Asian man has been spotted on the hill," shouted a soldier from the vanguard. Upon hearing this, everyone was immediately taken aback. Could it be that Su Bai was cornered, engaging in a fierce battle with the commander of another empire? Was he now a lone commander evading the pursuit of foreign monsters? After some discussion, they all agreed it was likely the case. The commander of the second kingdom waved his hand. "Soldiers, heed my command. We are a coalition. We rise and fall together. Those who bully our alliance will face consequences they cannot bear. Capture Su Bai alive. Bring his head to the guillotine." Everyone echoed in agreement. Indeed, that person from the Dragon Nation was too arrogant. Today, his head would surely fall. That's right. The commander from another nation chimed in. The coalition forces quickly prepared, increasing their marching speed, rushing towards the hill where Su Bai was located. Su Bai was also taken aback, not expecting such a massive enemy force. He wondered how many nations made up this coalition. Fortunately, he fumbled with the magic ring in his hand, raised his right hand, and gave the coalition a middle finger. The demonic realm flashed rapidly, and Su Bai quickly activated his invisibility skill, leaving the battlefield. After all, that hilltop was the ambush point he had set. However, the number of enemies was indeed beyond his expectations. Did you see that? That young man from the Dragon Country just flipped us off. Damn it. I want to infect him with the zombie virus and turn him into my puppet, enslaved for generations. Su Bai's use of the invisibility skill inadvertently angered the members of the Europa Alliance. Quick, chase him. That kid is running away. In an instant, Su Bai disappeared, and they assumed he had hidden behind the hill. In fact, Su Bai had already exited the center of the encirclement. This magic ring was indeed very useful. It could make a person invisible, and at a critical moment, it was an incredible life-saving tool. The relics were all so powerful. Soon, the forces of the Europa Alliance reached the hilltop, but found no trace of Su Bai. They heard the commander from a neighboring country pointing in the distance. "Look over there. That young man with black hair, just like me. Su Bai?" It turns out he was hiding behind the hill with a large force. Wow. We almost fell into his trap. Form up. Attack. With the sound of horns echoing, Zhao Haoyan, who was advancing towards Su Bai, also heard the horns from the top of the hill. He looked up and saw a sea of enemies. What was going on? Could the coordinates be fake? Impossible. After thinking carefully, he quickly understood what had happened. Earlier, he had killed a commander from the host country. It seemed that Su Bai had formed an alliance with them. Humph. Zhao Haoyan couldn't help but sneer. This proved that Su Bai's strength was far too distant from his own. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother with such tactics. So, in this foreign realm, he was undoubtedly the strongest. Since the opponent was using a wolf pack tactic, he would let them know that no matter how fierce the wolves were, they were no match for a tiger in the mountains. Ogre mages. Enhance the bloodlust of the elite two-headed ogres in the front line. Everyone prepare for battle. Something seemed off. Su Bai made a stop gesture, signaling his troops to halt their attack on the encircled enemies. It seemed like the two groups were not on good terms with each other. It appeared they were about to fight. This situation was beyond Su Bai's expectations, but made him want to laugh in his dreams. Such good fortune? Let them fight. It would be best if they both suffered heavy losses. He could easily go pick up the corpses afterward. Next to him, his hero Tanya tugged at her army green vest. The midday heat was somewhat intense, and a fine sheen of sweat formed on her chest. Commander, it's time to attack. It's not urgent. Those two groups don't seem to get along. If we rush into fight now, it will be quite chaotic. It's better to sit back and reap the benefits. Can anyone here compete with my two pistols? Tanya took out her dual pistols and performed a couple of tricks with them. Well, even if everyone surrounds Su Bai, can we say for sure that Su Bai will win? Defending back at the base should be more than enough for self-preservation. So, Su Bai isn't afraid of these enemies. But why should he take action himself? You, with your golden hair and big waves, not only are you flashy but also quite wild. If you have no strength left to use, come, let me teach you a set of shooting techniques from the Su family. Saying this, he pulled Tanya into the air defense vehicle. It was midday outside, with the sun shining. Explaining practical shooting techniques here would lead to sunburn. Besides, with so many soldiers watching, Su Bai didn't want his unique skills to be learned by his subordinates. It was better to go inside the vehicle where there was air conditioning. At noon, the weather was hot, and the heat swept across the ground, causing a gust of warm wind to blow over the hills. The commander of the vanguard stood at the top of the hill. Behind him, hundreds of siege tanks stood ready. Various troops from other nations were also arrayed in great numbers. As the first siege tank rolled down, the other troops surged forward, filled with killing intent, heading toward Zhao Haoyan's ogre army. TCH, foolish beings. Zhao Haoyan looked on with disdain. No matter how many there are, they are still trash. Kill. Crush them. Devour their flesh and blood. On the air defense vehicle, Su Bai held up a ring. You see this ring? On the surface, it's just a ring, but it truly is a ring. He showcased the golden magic ring in front of Tanya. Chapter 102. You are fighting too slowly. Let me help you out. Commander, you've been waving in front of me for almost a few hours now. Wait, isn't it said that the magic ring has hypnotic and seductive effects? Yet, this isn't part of the hypnotic plot. Su Bai murmured to himself. Forget it. Let us move directly to the second part. Su Bai put on the magic ring and entered an invisible state, cosplaying as a ghost battle warrior. It was already afternoon, and both sides were still engaged in battle. This pace is quite slow. I'll help them out. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of dead monsters stood up one by one, summoned by Su Bai's undead resurrection skill. At this moment, they were enhanced by the magic ring, and as long as their heads weren't damaged, they had infinite combat power. This sudden appearance of an undead army immediately disrupted the rhythm of the battle between the two sides. Not good. The commander from the other side has fallen, taken down by Su Bai. The people from the Europa Alliance gritted their teeth in the heat of battle. Unexpectedly, Su Bai, who commands the two-headed ogres, is so formidable. With thick skin and high defense, plus a heavy strike passive, once the opponent is stunned, they can be controlled to death. Even the commander from a certain country couldn't escape from his grasp. Despite the overwhelming numbers on this side, they gained no advantage at all. On the other hand, Zhao Haoyan also suffered injuries. The enemy's alliance was indeed powerful. With multiple troop types working together, launching ambushes and surprises, it was almost impossible to defend against. Damn Su Bai, I wonder how much was spent to recruit this mercenary force. If they can bring the European alliance under control, they must have emptied the coffers of their own country. However, now that they finally caught Su Bai, Zhao Haoyan certainly wouldn't let him escape. So he gathered his energy and shouted, Kegel, activate the holy armor. He charged into the enemy's main tent to eliminate their commander. A golden light along with sacred incantations rapidly spun in front of the hero Kegel. At that moment, the two-headed ogre chief had gained temporary invincibility. He knocked several siege assassins away and raced straight for the enemy's heart. Just then, the corpses on the ground suddenly revived and began to attack all soldiers indiscriminately. Zhao Haoyan was taken aback and stumbled back 2 steps, almost tripping over a rock. His lips trembled twice before he regained his composure. Su Bai, you really showed up. This move, the resurrection of the undead, was something Zhao Haoyan had seen Su Bai use during a competitive match against another country when he was in his own nation. He was shocked by the power of this technique at the time. reviving the fallen corpses to continue fighting for their side. Subai had turned the tide with this ability, bringing his country back from the brink of defeat. Reflecting on the pain, he immediately wrote to the emperor, requesting a way to counter it. Through the analysis of practitioners in his country, they finally found a method to counter this ability. Zhao Haoyan sneered. He took out an item from his storage ring, Scroll of the Holy Blade. After using this item, all attacks from the troops will be converted to holy attacks, which would inflict 300 damage on undead summons. Even if your summons are particularly strong, they will be finished under 3 times the attack. Subai, meet your end. Sure enough, after the two-headed lion ogre troops used the Holy Blade scroll, their attack power significantly increased, especially against Subai's undead army. As the hammer fell, several undead were crushed to pieces. Meanwhile, the troops of the European alliance had no special items to counter Subai. They had already suffered heavy losses in their previous battle with Zhao Haoyan. As a result, Subai's resurrection of the undead brought back both his own soldiers and the two-headed ogres that Zhao Haoyan had lost. The battle was intense, as if fighting against one's own reflection. Moreover, the attacks from the reflection were even more bizarre. The movements and actions were different from normal behavior. More and more soldiers from the alliance fell to Subai's undead. The commander of the Third Empire also attempted to carve a path using siege units. The damage of such units increased with the enemy's defense. The higher the defense, the greater the damage, and vice versa. However, Subai's undead were essentially like paper, with no significant defensive capabilities enhanced by any wonders. The two sides clashed, quickly wiping out all of the siege units from the Third Empire. Unexpectedly, Subai had this capability. We underestimated him. The commander of the Third Empire spread his hands, a look of despair on his face. The commander of the Frank Kingdom couldn't help but curse. He wondered how the alliance matched him with such a weak siege unit that couldn't even kill a regular soldier. It was more like a disgraceful unit. Hey, you two, stop arguing. Have you noticed something off? Suddenly, a commander pointed out the issue. This undead army that came out of nowhere was attacking indiscriminately, even targeting Subai's ogres. One observant commander realized the problem at hand. Indeed, what was happening here? Meanwhile, Zhao Haoyan was commanding his ogres with great delight, only for the undead units that were killed to be stitched back together and reborn, looking exactly like before, continuing to attack Zhao Haoyan. This? No way. How is that possible? Logically, the undead that are killed should be completely dead, with no chance of revival. I've watched that match more times than I've watched any movie. How can this be? His eyes widened as he watched his ogres being overwhelmed and killed by the undead army, almost unable to believe the outcome before him. He was very familiar with that skill, yet the results were completely different from what he had previously understood. His scalp tingled, his mouth dry, as if his head had been struck hard by a hammer, rendering him unable to think. At that moment, Subai's armored units sliced through the battlefield like a sharp blade, cutting across the center. He stood atop the Grand Apocalypse, looking down at the crowd with pride and authority. You're dead, Subai, Zhao Haoyan exclaimed, his eyes bloodshot. He pointed at Subai, filled with resentment. I once vowed to hang you up, flay you alive, then slice your flesh like roasted duck. No more, no less. Just 13,000 pieces. The final blow would pierce your heart for a live dissection. Of course, I keep using rapid healing to prevent you from dying in between. The pain I feel, I want you to experience it every moment. Zhao Haoyan was already somewhat deranged. Subai's appearance had given him the chance for revenge. He then began to laugh, his smile twisted and perverse. Chapter 103. Defeated again. Zhao Haoyan completely breaks down at the same time. The exaggerated laughter also caught Subai's attention. That voice sounds familiar. He looked up and saw it was Zhao Haoyan. So that's it. The so-called Yamamoto Haoyan was the name this guy took after escaping to a certain country. Now he was representing that country to participate in the battle in the external space. So it's you, Zhao Haoyan. Seeing Subai recognize him, Zhao Haoyan's laughter grew even more frenzied. Of course it's me. I came here just to kill you. As he spoke, he drew the demonic sword from his waist, pointing its tip at Subai in the distance. Subai smirked. Since we are old acquaintances, let me tell you that the one you've been hanging out with, Wang Kiki, I heard that all her immune cells have been destroyed by HIV, and now she has cancer, waiting to die at home. I wonder how long you can hold on. Truly pathetic. As the saying goes, killing people also means striking at their hearts. Subai brought up this old topic again. Zhao Haoyan's face turned green with anger, his vision darkened, and he nearly choked on his breath. He gritted his teeth, wanting to explain that he was taking the world's most advanced experimental drugs and wasn't dead yet. But the word stuck in his throat. Why should he tell his enemy about this? Instead, his opponent was about to die under his sword. Coach, come back to me. Eliminate Subai. The two-headed ogre chief Coach, who was fighting in the battlefield, immediately returned to Zhao Haoyan's side after receiving the order. He swung his massive stone hammer and charged at Subai. At that moment, Subai was about to lower his raised hand, and order an all-out attack to take down the two-headed ogre. Unexpectedly, the hero Tanya stood in front of Subai. Guns raised. "Commander, I'll handle it." Subai nodded, wanting to see just how strong Tanya really was. After all, this hero's attributes were not as powerful as those of other heroes that had been nurtured. Tanya. Strength, 125. Agility, 135. Defense, 84. Health, 680. Skills, C4 detonation. Headshot. Note. Skill to place C4 explosives on enemy buildings and armor, causing a guaranteed fatal explosion effect. Note. Skill dealing 850 damage to non-armored and building-type enemy units. Under the enhancement of the Wonder, the overall attributes weren't exceptional. However, using the detection metal to scan Zhao Haoyan's two-headed ogre chief code revealed that its attributes were definitely far superior to Tanya's. Who will ultimately prevail? Subai was also curious. In the next moment, Kogel raised the stone hammer and struck down, causing the ground to crack and dust to fly. A pit the size of a car was created, showcasing the terrifying power of Kogel. Meanwhile, Tanya rolled away with her gun, narrowly avoiding the blow. A bullet hit Kogel's shoulder, causing him to stagger back a few steps. Tanya did not hesitate. She pulled the trigger again. The second bullet struck Kogel's chest. Bang! Blood splattered from his chest. Zhao Haoyan suddenly laughed. Is this the extent of the damage? It couldn't even penetrate the thick fat of his hero. This is the so-called hero born from Subai. Impressive in appearance, but useless in action. No, it's more like useful but not usable. Indeed, trash is trash. And no matter how good the luck, it remains useless. Kogel, with the super shockwave, ended his hero. As you command, Commander. Kogel raised the stone hammer, concentrating all his strength into his hands, and swung it towards Tanya. Bang! The earth shattered, and sand flew everywhere. This force did not release outward. Instead, a gunshot rang out, and one of the eyes of the two-headed ogre chief Kogel was shot out. This hero had two heads, each with a large eye. The chief, in pain, dropped the stone hammer and covered his blinded eye with both hands. Another gunshot followed, and the other eye was also shot out by Tanya. It was so straightforward and unembellished that Zhao Haoyan felt a sense of déjà vu. It reminded him of their previous encounter on the school playground, where the opponent's attack was just as simple and direct. "Hi baby, I found your weakness." Next, Tanya continuously pulled the trigger. Bullets erupted from the gun's barrel with various attribute enhancements, firing faster than an AK-47. The two heads of the ogre chief Kogel were repeatedly hit. Blood sprayed out from both heads in bursts. Each shot dealt a heavy critical hit. Kogel could only howl in agony as the bullets struck his heads, causing him to jerk his head back. In this humiliating state of being controlled, his health bar emptied, and he collapsed to the ground. Tanya flicked her twin guns and blew a light breath at the gun muzzle before sliding them back into her waistband. The ground was littered with countless brass bullet casings. Soon, a wave approached Subai, with two hands resting on his shoulders and a head leaning close to his face. The feeling of being pushed back made Subai's body tremble suddenly. "Darling, how did I perform?" "Beyond my expectations. Shouldn't you reward me with a sweet kiss then?" Crushed. Zhao Haoyan felt defeated. The opponent's hero was unexpectedly powerful, far beyond his predictions. "Subai, you clearly awakened as a human hero, the most useless of the useless. How could you possibly defeat me?" Once again, a sense of frustration surged within him, and it didn't stop there. Every time, Subai could successfully show off in front of him. Previously, it was Su Xiaoya, and later he encountered the daughter of the police chief, Qi Tiantian. Now, he was glued to a foreign beauty. Why? This guy always had such good luck. Cough, cough, cough. A metallic taste filled his mouth. The death of the hero had also caused him significant internal damage. However, Zhao Haoyan remained defiant. Suddenly, he discarded the sheath of his katana and charged towards Subai, aiming directly at his chest. This cursed blade, the Shinzuka, was also a relic from a certain country, boasting an attack power of 300, 600. Moreover, once injured, the target would receive a cursed buff, reducing their defense by 80. It could be said that those who were struck would surely die. "Watch out," Tanya quickly warned. But Subai remained calm. He pulled out his Browning, without even aiming, and shot. Bang! After the gunshot, Zhao Haoyan suddenly fell, looking at his thigh, where a gaping wound appeared, and then it snapped, flying 5 meters away. He lay on the ground, still in disbelief. How could this guy also possess a relic? Impossible. Impossible. How could your weapon compare to the cursed blade granted by the Emperor? Chapter 104. Everyone, I'm not here to save you. I'm here to kill you. Subai also blew on the gun muzzle and smiled. "Kid, times have changed." Of course, Subai wouldn't let Zhao Haoyan go. Initially, if it was just dissatisfaction with being a top scholar and harboring resentment, it wouldn't be enough to kill him. But later, this guy betrayed and became a traitor. So killing him now was simply a matter of eliminating treachery. Zhao Haoyan lay on the ground, eyes filled with terror. Subai pressed the gun against his forehead. With his other hand, he casually pulled the cursed blade granted by the Emperor into his storage ring. After all, it was a relic-level trophy. Although he already had a dragon-slaying sword in his ring, having two of the same wouldn't be a problem. If it didn't work out, he could sell it, or even donate it to a patriotic education museum. After all, it was granted by the Emperor. And capturing such an item would highlight the glory of the Dragon Country. Please, don't kill me. I had no choice but to become a traitor for the Sakura nation. I was forced into it. Please, I beg you, don't kill me. My parents are still in prison. A foul smell wafted through the air. Subai frowned. This guy was scared to the point of losing control. He chuckled and gently tapped Zhao Haoyan's face with his gun, comforting him. Don't worry, with your cowardice. Killing you would just dirty my hands. Zhao Haoyan's eyes widened in disbelief that Subai was actually going to let him go. He quickly expressed his gratitude. However, at that moment, Subai fired 4 shots. The bullets hit Zhao Haoyan's other leg, both arms, and a small part of his body. Zhao Haoyan grimaced in pain. You said you wouldn't kill me? Subai put away his gun. Of course, I'm not killing you. You'll just fend for yourself here. Outside, there are demons everywhere. With his body already mangled, the only fate awaiting him here was to be devoured by those demons. Such a death would be quite brutal. At the same time, 2 police dogs were released, and they picked up Zhao Haoyan's severed limbs and began to munch on them. Good dogs. Feeding a traitor to the dogs is the best choice. Leaving Zhao Haoyan behind, Subai moved to the other side of the battlefield. This was the headquarters of the European Union. Here, Subai's armored forces had already taken control of the area. The members of the alliance were even more cowardly than Zhao Haoyan. They surrendered on the spot. Since Subai wasn't present at the time, they weren't executed immediately. Entering the temporary command room, Subai surveyed the scene and smiled. Everyone, I hope you're all well. The commander of the Frank Empire was the first to stand up. I am Jean d'Arc. Thank you for saving our lives. Although a sudden outbreak of undead forces had just occurred, and those unexpected troops killed anything alive in sight, they had at least managed to stop the elite ogre units led by Zhao Haoyan from advancing into their headquarters. The situation had been dire, nearly costing them their base. Even though the sun had set, the excitement of these people was as bright as midday. Subai chuckled again. These people were quite naive. He had come to kill them, yet they were acting so innocent and silly. Jean d'Arc and the other commanders took out many delicious delicacies from their storage rings. She personally poured Subai a full glass of 1982 Lafite in a beautiful wine goblet. Thank you, hero, for saving us. Here's to you with the 1982 Lafite. And with that, Jean d'Arc downed the glass in one go. Subai was even more amused. All right. I've only had 1982 Sprite before. Today I'll try a sip of 1982 Lafite. Subai took a small sip and was met with the rich flavor of red wine. Other commanders from different countries raised their glasses together. Thank you, hero, for saving our alliance, said the commander from a certain country, feeling quite polite. You're amazing. The enemy's 2-headed ogre was so invincible, yet it turned to dust in front of you. The enemy hero, Kogel, possessed invulnerable divine armor, crowd control abilities, and could unleash powerful shockwaves. One of those shockwaves could strike a kilometer away, taking down all soldiers in a straight line. Unexpectedly, upon encountering you, even the mightiest heroes became useless. St. Joan also expressed her admiration. In her gaze, there seemed to be a hint of affection. Her eyes sparkled, exuding a feeling of a beauty in love with a hero. Her face flushed even more under the mild intoxication of the wine. Others animatedly recounted the moment they turned the tide of battle, feeling that the commander before them was approachable and easy to deal with, without any trace of a strong person's arrogance. The banquet was lively, filled with laughter, and soon it was midnight. The commander from a certain empire took another sip of wine and, in a daze, asked Subai, "We've had such a pleasant conversation. I didn't expect there to be such an excellent commander in the region. Which country are you from?" Subai finished the last bite of steak and swallowed it down with a sip of 82 Lafite. Burp. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, blew his nose, and casually tossed the tissue on the ground before slowly speaking. Fellow commanders of the Alliance, it seems you've misunderstood me. The one you fought against is not Subai from Long Country, but Yamamoto Koten from a cherry blossom nation. As soon as these words left his mouth, everyone instantly sobered up halfway. They exchanged bewildered glances, incredulous at the revelation. How could it be? After all this time, we fought the wrong person? The after effects of the wine, combined with their confused expressions, made their heads ache even more. What on earth was going on? St. Joan rubbed her temples to regain her composure. Hero, are you saying we did not fight Subai? Subai nodded in affirmation. Then you helped us defeat Yamamoto Koten, who is currently ranked second on the leaderboard. That's right. Then you are. I am Subai from Long Country, and I intend to eliminate all of you here. His tone was quite gentle, and a smile played on his lips as he spoke. However, in an instant, everyone present was fully sober. The cold night wind blew through the gaps in the command post, causing everyone to shiver involuntarily. St. Joan, meanwhile, stood frozen like she had been struck by lightning, taking a long time to regain her senses. What? You are Subai? That's right, I am. Joan of Arc couldn't believe that the enemy of the National Alliance was standing right in front of her. Moreover, he had helped them defeat Yamamoto Koten from the Cherry Blossom Nation. Her throat felt a bit choked. You killed Hobbit Tori and John. Of course, Subai replied frankly. These two conspired with a few others to try to rob me of my fortune token. Since they wanted to kill me, it was only natural for me to fight back and eliminate them, which is entirely justified. Chapter 105. Compensation? Sacrifice? Declaration of war? The expressions of everyone present turned as ugly as a pig's kidney. The joyful banquet was overshadowed by a heavy gloom. Joan of Arc couldn't help but swallow hard. Those two wanted to kill and rob, and you eliminated them, which they deserved. We haven't harmed you, and even thank you for your help. What more do you want? Everyone shared Joan's perspective, only able to defend their innocence. There was nothing they could do. The entire continent of Europa couldn't completely defeat even a small figure like Yamamoto Koten. Now, another killer, Subai, had emerged. Was this someone they could provoke? Silence fell like a cold cicada. Subai smiled. Those two deserve to die, but you want to come after me for revenge? Killing you two wouldn't be excessive, would it? Once these words were spoken, the entire audience felt unsteady. Even if they had weapons, they couldn't escape Subai's grasp. Outside the main camp, all were his soldiers. They had witnessed his firepower before. Now, the only way to survive was to appease Subai's anger. Mr. Subai, grievances have their sources, and debts have their owners. We indeed have our faults. On behalf of the Frank Kingdom, I am willing to apologize and offer compensation. Subai didn't even lift his eyes, merely snorting, compensation? How do you intend to compensate? The two who harmed you will be immediately reported to the Europa Alliance. We will execute their entire family, the men will be executed, and the women will be exiled to the temples for the Pope's enjoyment. Additionally, we will compensate your nation with 1 billion euros. How does that sound? Subai seemed uncertain. He looked Joan of Arc up and down once more. This woman had brown hair and blue eyes, clad in silver armor that hugged her figure, perfectly showcasing her curves. Between the shiny armor on her lower body, her thighs were firm and full, exuding a sense of youthful beauty. This woman truly had a sense of responsibility, much more so than the men from other allied nations. And she wasn't speaking of matters that would irritate Subai. Feeling Subai's cold gaze, Joan of Arc lowered her head and said softly, I can also serve as your secretary here. Subai was taken aback. Secretary? What kind of secretary? A daytime secretary or a nighttime one? Everyone was escorted out of the large tent, their hands and feet bound, and taken to Subai's base for detention. Of course, to prevent any unexpected actions. Everyone was tied up. They were held in separate cells, each guarded by 2 soldiers. Additionally, Subai deployed a small team of special forces, assigning one to each detainee to ensure that anyone attempting to cause trouble would be shot on the spot. In the command center of Long Country, everyone watched the situation through a relic, observing Zhuge Fengyun's perspective. After being rejuvenated by the hot springs, his health was completely restored. However, everyone's expressions were as cold as ice on a frigid winter day. The third elder hung up the phone and said to the group, We have figured out what happened. Subai has killed 2 commanders from the opposing alliance, and they have now submitted a declaration of war to the embassy. They are preparing their troops for an attack on our country. The officials in the military department were shocked. It truly had come to the brink of war. Third elder. I understand. As officials of the military department, we must immediately inform the border soldiers to be on alert for the approaching enemy. Several officials quickly stood up, saluted, and prepared to leave. Stop. The matter is not resolved yet. Where do you think you're going? Zhuge Xinxian blocked their way. Third elder. I suggest we immediately issue a warrant for Subai's arrest. Once he returns to Long Country, we can apprehend him and hand him over to the opposing side for handling, while also offering some compensation. I believe this matter can be resolved peacefully. Li Yunlong could no longer tolerate this defeatist stance. He stood up abruptly and swung the pearwood chair beneath him towards Zhuge Xinchuan's head. Blood splattered against the pillar, and Zhuge Xinchuan's eyes widened in shock as he looked at Li Yunlong. Military secrets. What are you doing? Third elder. Li Yunlong is going to kill someone. I'll kill you today, you traitorous coward. Just then, among the relics, Zhuge Fengyun became excited. It's happening. It's happening. The gates of the Great Wall are opening. The true masters of this base are finally going to reveal their mysterious identity. Everyone hurriedly looked over. They saw the commanders from the opposing alliance entering one by one. Zhuge Xinxian covered his head. Do you see? Do you see? This solid fortress was built by them. If we confront them head-on, we will definitely suffer losses. Quickly, take Li Yunlong away. However, upon closer inspection, the images showed that these commanders from the opposing alliance also had their hands bound and were being escorted by soldiers from their own country. This left everyone exchanging glances. Subsequently, heavy tanks began to enter, armored units moved into the city, and anti-aircraft vehicles came to a halt. After the hatch opened, 3 people descended. On the left was a beautiful woman with long blonde waves, and on the right was a brown-haired, blue-eyed beauty. In between these 2 women stood a young man, radiating confidence and enjoying the feeling of being embraced by them. Zhuge Fengyun was shocked on the spot. Isn't that Su Bai? Even the officials from the Ministry of War watching the relic scene, along with the 3 elders, were equally astonished. This is really Su Bai. Could it be that this base belongs to him? How is that possible? How did he manage to build such an unassailable base? Zhuge Fengyun snapped back to reality and rushed over. Su Bai? Long time no see, brother Zhuge. Is this really your base? What? If you don't like it, you can leave at any time. No, I really like it. Zhuge Fengyun was already incoherent. General Li Yunlong was beaming with joy. Damn it. Wolves travel thousands of miles for meat. Dogs travel thousands of miles for dung. The kid I had high hopes for is indeed impressive, even in foreign lands. He's still making waves, not only capturing all those European scoundrels, but also snagging 2 foreign ladies. The other officials from the Ministry of War also regained their composure. This is solid. Our commander has such a strong fortress for defense. The upcoming battles will be foolproof. That's right. It's very likely that we will be the final winners. Zhuge Fengyun poured cold water on them again. Did you not see? Su Bai has locked up the European commanders. He has killed people and imprisoned the rest, which is why they are so eager to declare war on us. I suggest we immediately let Su Bai release them and follow the plan we discussed earlier. Only then can we hope for a de-escalation. The smiles of the officials faded. Indeed, they still faced the risk of war with the other side. But just then, an official from the Ministry of War rushed in urgently, loudly announcing, the European nations claim that it was all a misunderstanding. The 2 who died had it coming, and their entire family has been dealt with. They demand 1 billion euros in compensation from us Dragon Kingdom and state that the previous declaration of war was the work of some ill-intentioned individuals. They have conducted a self-examination and are now offering an additional 1 billion euros in compensation to the Dragon Kingdom. Explosion. Everyone was in uproar. Chapter 106. Su Bai uses the fortune token. The national fortune soars. The people of the Dragon Kingdom are overjoyed. Just as everyone was stunned by how quickly the European alliance had softened, Su Bai had already used his fortune token. A mechanical sound echoed across the vast landscapes of the homeland and in everyone's ears. Commander of the Dragon Kingdom, Su Bai, uses the fortune token, randomly receiving a small-scale national fortune. National fortune selection in progress. Selection completed. 5 oil fields with a production capacity of 500 million tons added in the northern part of the country. 500 million tons. And 5 fields. A 500 million ton oil field is classified as a super large oil field, and there are actually 5 of them. These oil fields serve as military reserves, and one can only imagine how many incendiary bombs can be produced from them. All cities in the nation are stocked with these bombs, allowing ordinary citizens to defend the city walls even in the face of monstrous sieges, without needing a commander with military experience. This is the sense of security that oil brings to a nation. It is a strategic resource. The officials in the military department have yet to recover from their shock. Suddenly, the phone of the 3rd elder rang. Ah, it's the 1st elder. The caller is the 1st elder. That young man you sent, named Su Bai, is truly brave and resourceful. Not only did he survive this foreign war, but he also brought fortune to our nation. You did well. You have an eye for talent. The 3rd elder quickly responded humbly. How could I dare to take credit? I met this young man once and felt he had the courage of 1,000 men. Now, indeed, it is his time to shine. A true hero for the nation and the people. As their conversation continued, Li Yunlong stood up from his seat and pointed at the relic, saying, Look, the Europeans are kneeling with both hands, presenting the fortune token they obtained to Su Bai. Everyone immediately looked over. But in the next moment, the fortune token was used by Su Bai once again. Selecting national fortune, selection complete. All citizens of this nation have their agility increased by 3 points. In the next moment, everyone felt lighter on their feet. This is the new power that Su Bai has brought to them. The 1st elder, still on the line, became excited again. Hurry and send me the information on this young man Su Bai. When he comes out, I want to personally commend him. Yes. After communicating with the 1st elder, the 3rd elder's face flushed, and his mood soared, as if the wrinkles on his face had lessened. 3rd elder. Su Bai not only kidnapped those European commanders, but also seized and used the fortune token they obtained. This could lead to international disputes, reported Zhuge Shenxian. The 3rd elder's face suddenly froze. This Zhuge Shenxian usually behaves normally, so why is he nitpicking at every turn now that Su Bai has entered the foreign land? Even though Su Bai has activated national fortune twice, he still acts like a dog, relentlessly biting at Su Bai. The 3rd elder slowly spoke. Mr. Zhuge, your words are rather disrespectful. After being in this position for so many years, your contributions do not compare to that of this young man, yet you speak so recklessly. Do you have a grudge against him? Zhuge Xinxian did not expect the third elder to speak to him this way. He broke into a sweat and immediately knelt to explain. Third elder, you misunderstand. I am doing this for the peace of the nation. Bring him here. Time and again. Looking for trouble with Su Bai? Take him to the judicial department for interrogation. I want to see what grievances you have with Su Bai. Two special forces soldiers walked in, capturing Zhuge Shen's arms and twisting them behind his back, taking him away. Li Yunlong gave a thumbs up to the third elder. I said, Old Su, you finally opened your eyes. This bastard should have been dealt with long ago and thoroughly interrogated. Hearing this, the third elder's face turned red. After all, Zhuge Shen was also a key military figure. How could he be judged solely based on a few words? He awkwardly coughed. Managing a large country is like cooking a small fish. Nothing should be rushed. On Su Bai's side, there seemed to be no rivals left in the entire outer realm. The whole continent was at his mercy. At this time, he had already broken through to level 32. And the number of units he could command was about to exceed 1,000. Commander, the Phantom tank is here to report. A light tank stopped in front of Su Bai. This tank was small in size but equipped with a special attack system. A powerful thermal energy ray cannon distinguished it from the bear tank. In the game, this type of tank could disguise itself as bushes, causing certain automated attacking units to lose their target the moment they transformed into foliage, achieving a surprise attack effect. Tanya walked over, touched the armor of the Phantom tank, and said to Su Bai, this is a special tank developed by Dr. Einstein in the Hamburg Black Forest Laboratory. It uses the principle of light refraction for camouflage, suitable for defense and ambush. Is that so? I thought it really turned into a tree, Su Bai said, having built more than 30 of them, lined up around the base. These tanks immediately refracted to resemble nearby terrain features, such as the towering mushrooms unique to this area and giant rocks. Su Bai did not plan to have these Phantom tanks execute offensive tasks. They were only needed for defense here. He still had over 12,000 points, most of which were seized from other commanders, while the rest were earned from monster kills. Without hesitation, he clicked on the wonders again, selecting buildings that could enhance the power of his units. At this moment, he discovered that he could build basic, intermediate, and advanced shops within the buildings. And these shops were relatively inexpensive compared to the wonders. The highest level shop only required 2,000 points. Su Bai couldn't help but construct an advanced shop to see what items were for sale inside. In the next second, the ground bulged, and a 3-story bazaar building rose from the ground. Jean Dark, who was walking along the road to report to Su Bai, was so frightened that she fell to the ground. No way, is he really going to buy that thing? Entering the shop, there were many items available for exchange. For example, there are instant recovery potions that can restore 500 health points in 3 seconds, with a cooldown of 12 hours. There are also magical potions for instant recovery. These items can be lifesavers at critical moments. However, these items are of no use to Su Bai, until he saw a special item. Warlock Gul'dan Summoning Scroll. Single-use item. Effect. Summons the demon Warlock Gul'dan and his army. Exchange points. 1,000. This item reminded Su Bai of the previous blue Ice Demon Summoning Scroll. After defeating that guy, he dropped some good items. Could this one be similar? In Chapter 107, Su Bai doesn't consider captives as humans and experiments on living subjects, turning them into mental wrecks. Let's not think about buying it for now. After all, this time his teammates have all been taken down by him. There's no way to let others take the damage for him like last time, only to reap the rewards later. Looking at the other items, they were either teleportation daggers, guardian rings, or attack claws. Nothing particularly useful. The strongest items were the airship and the lumbering robot, which were hireable units. Su Bai frowned. It was all too primitive. If he were to hire that lumbering robot, it would just be another target for his terrifying robots to annihilate. However, he also discovered that there was a function for a 10-time draw. As an innate card-drawing prodigy, he couldn't miss out on a 10-time draw. The only downside was that the price was extremely high, costing 6,480 points for 10 draws, which was equivalent to the price of a wonder. But, draw? Congratulations, you have obtained 200 points. Congratulations, you have obtained 60,000 experience. Congratulations. You have obtained Fire Spirit Pearl. Congratulations, you have obtained 10 points. Congratulations, you have obtained Sacred Light. The 10-time draw ended. Aside from points and experience, there was nothing particularly useful. But finally, one item that excited Su Bai appeared. It was the Fire Spirit Pearl, the last piece he needed after multiple syntheses of wind, forest, mountain, and fire. He had not expected to draw it at the last moment. How dramatic. Breathing heavily, he called out, wind, forest, mountain, fire, merge. A pillar of fire shot up from the refining magic box. The fire engulfed the entire sky. The dark night was instantly tinted blood red. Congratulations. Synthesis successful. When Su Bai shakily took out the wind, forest, mountain, fire, the ancient military strategy book underwent a transformation. The previous brush-written characters for wind, forest, mountain, fire changed to gold embossed characters for Sun Tzu's Art of War. Sun Tzu's Art of War. Could this be the highest ancient military strategy of the legendary Huaxia? Su Bai trembled as he opened the cover. The attributes of the relic immediately revealed themselves. The Art of War, Fragment 1. Military Classics. Relic. Attributes. Increases the movement speed of all units by 25 and absolute evasion by 25. Increases the healing speed of all units by 25 and grants 1,000 health points. Increases the attack speed of all units by 25. All units deal additional fire attribute damage, and those already dealing fire attribute damage will receive a boost of 500. Increases the death rebound of all units by 500 and expands the death rebound range by 1,000. Shocking. The attributes of the fragment of the Art of War astonished Su Bai. It turned out that this relic, compared to the Dragon Slayer or Browning, was not particularly outstanding overall. Even after synthesizing the Earth Spirit Pearl, Wind Spirit Pearl, and Wood Spirit Pearl, it was still not enough compared to these wonders in the Outer Realm. Unexpectedly now, it had directly leaped to become Su Bai's strongest treasure, an absolute evasion of 25. It raised the survival chance by 14. With 1,000 health points, even the weakest soldier now surpassed the elite monsters here in overall power. Not to mention the enhancement of fire damage. Now all his infantry had fire attribute damage. Although it was only a mere 5 points, it had now increased to 500. That was tons of damage. Moreover, standing atop the Great Wall, he looked at the phantom tanks outside the city. The attacks of these tanks were thermal cannons. Does that mean the damage of the phantom tanks had increased by 500? Coupled with the 1,000 health points, even the fragile shells had turned into tanks. Thinking of this, Su Bai's breath quickened again. Could it be said that, by purchasing the Gul'dan summoning scroll, he could eliminate the tanks while they were still in a dazed state? The rare item Duong Duong had exploded. With this thought, Su Bai hesitated no longer. He directly purchased the Gul'dan summoning scroll. As soon as he bought it, the entire outer realm echoed with a chilling laughter. Then, a line of bloody subtitles appeared on the public screen. Commander of the Dragon Nation, Su Bai, purchased the Gul'dan summoning scroll. Su Bai smiled, not expecting that Gul'dan had such a big show. Even before the summoning, the special effects subtitles were already activated. Impressive. Thus, he stationed all the phantom tanks at the foot of the city, spreading them out, preparing for optical invisibility, and getting ready to use the scroll. No, don't. Stop. At that moment, a breathless woman's voice came from behind. Su Bai turned around. It was none other than the Saint Joan. Her chest heaved under the armor, clearly having run a bit out of breath. What's wrong? Su Bai asked. We are about to enter the final stage of the Outer Realm. That is to confront the Abyss Lord. If you summon the Ancient One, there's no chance of winning if they merge forces. Even if they don't merge, facing the Ancient One alone would be severely damaging. By the time you've recovered, the Abyss Lord and his army will have arrived, and you'll have no chance at all. At that moment, a member of the Special Forces reported. All the captives' equipment has been confiscated, they have no food, and are now protesting. Su Bai frowned. Why are these people so troublesome? Are they all pampered soldiers? Understood. There are many delicious delicacies in their storage rings. However, Su Bai had no intention of sharing them. It would be much better to enjoy them himself. So he said, take the wine and meat from the banquet and bring it to them. His subordinates brought over the food and drink. The meat was all dried, causing the soldiers' eyes to redden, and they became frenzied. But Su Bai did not want to experiment on humans, nor did he have the courage to eat it himself. Instead, he decided to let these dozen or so people try it first. If there were no side effects, he would eat it himself later. Can this meat be eaten? One of the captives asked. Of course it can. It's like the finest ham from your homeland. The captives were skeptical, but their hunger and thirst were overwhelming. They thought, whether it's life or death, let us eat first. After eating the meat, the eyes of these Europeans indeed began to redden like the soldiers. Initially, they maintained a polite demeanor while eating, but soon they began to devour it like beasts. Good wine, good meat. More, more. They all seemed to lose their minds, taking off their shirts and getting entangled with each other, becoming true brothers. Such debauchery turned the entire cell into a large party venue, filled with the smell of men. Su Bai watched in shock. Thankfully, he hadn't eaten. Otherwise, he would have ended up like them, losing even the most basic sense of decency, if not their very orientation. As long as they could satisfy their desires, they had no scruples. Saint Joan, who followed Su Bai, also opened her mouth in disbelief. Witnessing all of this, who would have thought that this operation would lead to such chaotic relationships among these people? What on earth caused them to behave like this? Su Bai simply said, nothing, just good brothers, lifelong bonds. However, even if it were poison, it could also be a remedy. At least, if used in safe doses. It could unleash a ferocious side. Given this, Su Bai instructed dozens of soldiers to continuously fetch food and drink from the lavish banquet. They distributed it among each soldier's rations, including the tank drivers. Before the battle, everyone needed to consume some to maintain high levels of focus and frenzy, rather than turning into mindless warriors as the previous batch did and charging recklessly. That previous group had charged too fiercely and ended up dead. Sustainability was key. Once the defending soldiers on the city wall had consumed their share of food and drink, Subai activated the summoning scroll, and official telegrams flew towards the capital like arrows. Madness. Subai of the Dragon Kingdom had gone insane. For the first time in history, someone dared to challenge the warlock Gul'dan. Many years ago, the youngest and most outstanding commander of humanity had attempted this challenge and met with disaster in the Outer Realms.